What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check for the last time in 2020, because it's the last day of 2020. Something different, again, obviously. Not really much of a script, not really much of, there's no doomy clipboard of doom, because this is just going to be a little bit of an intro, and then we're going to get into some other stuff. I don't typically do like the typical like year-end wrap-up. Everybody does their end-of-year lists and what was your highlight, what was your low light, you know. In other years, I've actually taken December off to get ready for Royal Rumble season, all that sort of thing. But 2020's been a bullshit year, and it hasn't been like any other year. So if I'm ever going to do a yearly roundup, why would I not do a roundup of 2020? Do not worry. It's not going to be just you guys looking at me, looking at the pretty sexy face and the gimmick hat, because I will have help on this video. I had hoped to have all three of my awesome co-hosts participating in this. Unfortunately, we were not able to get Kristen. Time just didn't work out, so hopefully she and I are going to knock out something real quick beginning of January for the new year. I was able to get Jake, and I was able to get GUAPO separately. Jake and I, you're going to see in a minute or two, we're going to do a quick year-end wrap-up for NXT. GUAPO and I, obviously, are going to do a nice little wrap-up for AEW. And, like I say, beginning of January, Kristen and I will hopefully do a beginning of the year, looking forward into 2021 for the Flix Fix thing. And that's really the story of this year and a little bit of last year for this channel. Is the way we did things on this channel was sort of a paradigm shift. No John Moxley pun intended. Changed how I did things on the channel. I mean, the NXT reviews are still the flagpole of this channel, but it used to be I would do the NXT reviews, I would do any other bits and bobs that I wanted to do, and then me and Kristen and GUAPO, we would get together and we would preview whatever WWE pay-per-view was coming up that month. And then sort of collectively, I mean, I stopped reviewing Raw, I stopped reviewing SmackDown. Collectively, we all sort of decided that WWE was a bit shit. And we all sort of jumped off the main roster WWE bandwagon. And you're going to hear me say this more than once over the course of this video. This video is going to be long, and I can tell you it's going to be long because parts of it are already recorded before I record this little bit here. But I was lucky in the sense that Kristen sort of gave up on wrestling completely, but was willing to hop on board with me to make the Flix Fix series a reality. She and I had done a couple one-off movie reviews here and there. We decided sort of this year, let's make it a thing. Let's make it an actual like series on the channel, because as much as, you know, she wasn't watching wrestling and she was sort of disenchanted with wrestling, and who can blame her? I wanted her to stay on the channel. I wanted her to still be part of this channel, because she, along with GUAPO and now Jake as well, are huge parts of this show. So first of all, because she's not part of this video, I want to take a minute to say thank you to Kristen, aka Black Cat Feline. Go follow her on Twitter. Bug her, tell her I sent you. I'm sure she'll love it. Reminder that I said Alien 3 is just like Shawshank Redemption. I'm sure she'll love that. But yeah, we went off and did the Flix Fix thing as AEW became a thing. GUAPO and I sort of transitioned into doing the AEW stuff, which is awesome because he's way more knowledgeable about it than I am. And somewhere in the mix, I was able to, and I was lucky enough to rope in Jake DeMarCo from the Joe Cronin Show, from seeing him work with OKFabe, who we're going to get back on the channel eventually, I promise, to have him sort of come on and be like the NXT guy the same way GUAPO was my AEW guy. So as much as I am here to talk to you guys, as I always do, and let you know, as I don't do enough, how much I appreciate you guys, how much I help you guys, I appreciate you guys watching me, listening to me, that have followed me as I've taken this YouTube show and sort of transitioned it into a podcast as well, and the following there has been really cool. Am I where I want to be? No. Do I have the numbers I'd like to have? No. But I know the people that are loyal listeners, watchers, supporters of this channel, and never don't think I appreciate it. And as much as all that is true, I really, this time around, this particular video is more for me to show appreciation to the people that have contributed to this channel in a more direct way. I want to send a quick shout out as well to people like Jake DeMarCo, people like Greg Morgan, good mic work, Simon Miller earlier on in the year from What Culture as well, who have all done live streams and have all let me plug ad nauseum this channel, trying to get the rub. So I want to send a bit of appreciation out to them as well. Anybody that has shared my stuff on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, have mentioned me on one of their videos and whatever. If there's anybody I've missed, please let me know. Please tell me, because I want to see it so that I can thank you appropriately. But this time around, it really is to thank the people that have made this channel what it is with me. Going back to when we had, back in the day, we had, Deluxe Man and Preston and Eon Izzle, and like I said, we've had Okayfabe, we've had Heel Steven, we had Fear the Spear 1990, we had all kinds of people, but in its current incarnation, the Spaz Phoenix podcast family, for lack of a better term, is myself, Super Sexy Jake DeMarco, Senior Guapo, and Kristen, aka Black Cat Feline. And before I get into some of our more collaborative stuff, I just want to say to you three specifically that are watching, listening, whatever, I cannot thank you enough for making this channel what it is and making this channel as fun as it is. Again, especially over the past, over the past year or so, with many complications, most of them going through COVID, through me having social media issues, as you will see I'm having tonight, if you've been following me on Twitter at all tonight, through COVID, through wrestling not being what I wanted it to be, to starting a movie review series in the year that we couldn't go and see any movies. So before I get into the collaborative stuff, like I say, tonight it's going to be sort of wrestling centric, because you're going to hear a pretty decently long recording that I did with Jake, and right after that is going to be the very same thing with myself and Guapo, talking about NXT and AEW and what 2020 meant to both of those companies respectively. And that's going to be it. That's how we're going to ring in the new year. I'm going to try to time this out so that the video ends before midnight, so that anybody that is celebrating New Year's and the end of this is god-awful year can click off of here and go enjoy your countdown for New Year's and whatnot. But all that ramble is to say, for everybody listening, but specifically to Jake, Guapo, Kristen, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. Here's to 2021, and it's got to be better than this, right? So right now I'm going to throw it over to myself and Jake. Enjoy.
All right, so I guess we're going to start off with NXT because it's my favorite brand. Guapo won't mind waiting a little bit. So we got Super Sexy Jake DeMarco. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on? Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. Hopefully you had a nice Christmas.
I did.
Get yourself a chance to relax a little bit and enjoy the holiday.
I got, toys and action figures, and right now, up on my Instagram, you can see Triple H beating the shit out of Kofi Kingston, because I'm a bad person. But yeah, no, I sent you guys sort of a message kind of last minute. We're going to kind of wrap up sort of what the year's been like.
That photo you sent me of Kofi's demise had me laughing for quite a while.
Yeah, on the breakaway Raw set.
Yes. That thing is awesome. I wish I had that when I was a kid. I'm telling you, some of the toys they have now are pretty BA.
Yeah, I was going to say, I never really had toys when I was a kid, but now...
I remember I had a Thomas the Tank Engine, boxcar trailer that I used to fill with dirt for my Buried Alive matches.
Nice.
That was the extent of things that you had to use your creativity for.
I had Marble Works.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, who remembers Marble Works?
I remember Marble Works. I also remember setting my mother's living room rug on fire, trying to use pyros for everybody's wrestler entrance.
Well,
I used sparklers and fireworks indoors so that, it would be accurate to the TV product. And Kane might have erupted my living room rug on fire.
And see, you should have waited until 2020, where doing everything inside, even if it was totally unsafe, would be more socially acceptable.
Almost required.
Oh, Jesus. But hey, want to talk about the newly married guy setting off fireworks in the house.
That's right.
Anyway, so if there was ever a year where I was actually going to get off my ass and actually do a year in review, wouldn't it just be 2020?
It would be. I mean, you figure this year does not deserve it, but there have been, like you said, if we're going to go category to category or company to company, at least for, the 3 we cover,
Yeah.
Even though it's 2, but 3, I consider NXT its own, as you do as well. There's a lot that just was like, wow, that happened. I forgot that happened because everything feels like a COVID era.
Yep. And the thing is, and I'm sure when I get GUAPO on later on, we'll say the same thing with AEW as well. The one thing we do have to remember is, and this is more of a regular WWE thing. I don't think we're going to have too much to say about mainstream WWE, because mainstream WWE is kind of cancer. But what throws it into stark contrast, and you and I have said it on previous podcasts, is Edge returning at the Royal Rumble happened this year.
Yes.
That was part of 2020. That does not feel like it was 10 months ago.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, look at NXT Portland, TakeOver Portland.
Yeah, the last takeover we previewed before we went into lockdown.
Yeah, the last thing they had with fans, and you look at that show and how great that show was. Imagine if they didn't have fans for that.
Yeah, well, or conversely, imagine if we had fans for some of the stuff we had now. But think about it like this way too.
Exactly, but going with how the rest of the year was, it just, Worlds Collide was there, and I forgot about how good that was. The Rumble was exceptional. It really was a good Rumble.
Whether you like it or not, there was a Saudi show.
Yes, that was a disaster.
For better or for worse. Well, it's good for comedy value.
I was just so destroyed by how they handled The Fiend there and just completely destroyed him.
Yeah, but this week we have Randy Orton getting Alexa Bliss wet, so everything comes full. No, it really doesn't.
No. He soaked her all right, though.
But it feels like we've had 2 or 3 years of bullshit crammed into 10 months. But it's worth...
They didn't know what to do. They panicked. They didn't have an audience, so they canceled all long-term booking plans, whatever few they did have in WWE.
And see, in the beginning...
canceled a few, dealt with a few injuries, and...
In the beginning, I could understand them wanting to book just week to week, especially not so much NXT, but with Raw and SmackDown. I can understand them booking sort of like week to week. Every show's kind of a house show
because it was so unknown. Yeah.
In the beginning, you didn't know what to expect. You didn't know who was going to be pulled from the show one week to the next, what was going to happen, whether they were going to get shut down. Like, it sounds funny to say it now, but like, there was a brief time between the beginning of the ongoing global situation and WrestleMania where we were all like, yeah, but it's
they'll
Vince.
Have fans by Mania. It'll be back by Easter.
Not even that, but it was just the whole like, it's Vince. He's not going to cancel Mania. And then we had Empty Mania. And
I actually just went back to kind of relive a little bit the other day.
I can't do it, man.
It is just jarring to have no fans. As much as I knock the Thunderdome and don't care for it that much anymore, it is miles better to have than just silence.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, and it sort of will tie into NXT, but like, how can I say this? I'm tripping on my words because we're both very, very tired. Let's just be honest.
Let's be straightforward. We're both exhausted. But...
the one thing I've always said, the two people I feel the most sorry for at WrestleMania were Drew McIntyre and Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, both of them. That was Rhea Ripley got screwed with booking, and Drew missed out on his moment.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think
Drew carried the company the whole year, basically on his back, from January till December. Raw's main focus has been on him.
Yeah. Well, and whoever was doing on SmackDown, they kind of pulled themselves out of that mess.
Yeah. Granted, but SmackDown was floundering until Roman came back in August. Yep. It didn't really. The only highlights we had on SmackDown were Bayley and Sasha, and even that was.
And doesn't that really just say something? No, but I had a point that I was going to make, and now it's gone. No, with the Rhea Ripley thing, right? Even if they had booked her the way they booked her, even if she had lost to Charlotte Flair, yes, we as fans would have shit on it like we did. But if that had happened at the Ray J Stadium, whatever, the pirate gimmick stadium there, even if you lost, you're going in there, you're the first person ever to bring an NXT championship into WrestleMania against somebody the caliber of Charlotte Flair, and you can't argue the caliber of Charlotte Flair whether you like her or not. Even in a losing effort, that's still a great, like, coming home moment for Rhea Ripley.
Yes.
And you never get to have your first WrestleMania again.
No, you certainly don't. And
so she's
her coming out to silence, not having any of that really made it just so disparaging. And same thing with Drew winning and accomplishing everything that he did after all the years of failures and never reaching the pinnacle as he wanted to. He finally scaled the mountaintop.
Yeah, I would still say Rhea Ripley more so, because while it may have been in lesser roles, Drew McIntyre had been to WrestleMania before.
Yes.
Rhea Ripley.
No doubt, this was her first. I'm saying, but for both of them.
Yeah, Rhea Ripley. I think there was so many layers to it. Like it was the first active NXT person to be in a WrestleMania. It was the first time an NXT championship was defended at WrestleMania. It was just one more step in the elevation of the tremendous value of the NXT women's division, which you and I have talked about ad nauseum. And yeah, I'm sorry, you step into WrestleMania against somebody like Charlotte Flair. It's like, would you rather beat Heath Slater at WrestleMania, or would you rather lose to The Undertaker?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, not conflating Charlotte Flair with The Undertaker, but I think you guys out there all get my meaning. If that had happened in front of a crowd, yes, we would have all gotten on Twitter and debated the result, but I don't think Rhea Ripley would have minded. And if the booking had come after that to rebuild her quickly on her experience or some kind of rebound story, rather than throwing Io Shirai into the mix, I don't think it would have been nearly as deadly as it was.
Oh, absolutely.
But I want to go a little bit more, not bullet point. I don't have a whole bunch of notes, which is why we're floundering here. Just in the way generally NXT handled COVID, I think NXT shone as opposed to Raw and SmackDown, and you can tell me if you agree and why and whatever. I think one of the reasons was they never moved. Like, Raw, SmackDown, the bigger arena shows had to move into the small, tight, cramped, confined PC, whereas NXT, at least for the first little while, stayed at Full Sail. So NXT sort of felt the same size still, if that makes sense. And
that makes perfect sense.
And the stars were able to fill that small space with their action, with their sound, with their exuberance and whatever, whereas the other shows that are used to being so much bigger could be seen noticeably like
was drastic. By comparison, you're going from gigantic arenas to their performance center, and then especially in the beginning, they were focusing on the empty seats where the hard camera was placed.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at the Titantron and moving it like AEW did, they kept looking towards the audience and pointed everything at the empty seats. So it just looked that much more. So when they finally got the plexiglass, when they got to, bring in some small fan, that made that much more of a difference just in the environment, in the aspect of how everything felt. But yeah, that was a great point, because it just, that's one of the saving graces for NXT was the CWC. Yeah. Having the combination of live fans, a smaller venue, something that's their own, and the Thunderdome aspect combined too, really made for a unique environment.
And see, that's another thing too. Like I say, in the first stages, everybody moved to the PC. NXT got to stay at Full Sail, so they still felt like they were at home a little bit. And then you move into this interactive era. When they went to the Thunderdome, they got rid of the small groups of fans that they had for Raw and SmackDown and integrated fans with the NXT interactive experience. So they never lost the live reaction. I don't. If they can do it in the CWC, I don't know why they can't do it for the Thunderdome. And if they don't do it at least for the Royal Rumble, then they're idiots. Because you're going to have nobody doing a countdown, or you're going to have, what's his name, in the back there, hitting a button that makes the crowd count down for all the Rumble entrants. That's going to be shit.
Yeah, it's going to be awful.
It
no
boggles...
one's done pressing those sound effect buttons the whole time.
It boggles my mind that the CWC is a smaller venue, and they've managed to intricate a bunch of fans and whatnot in amongst the digital and in a larger area now, especially now that they're in the big field for Raw and SmackDown, that they haven't done that at all.
Yeah, they're in a baseball stadium that has so much unutilized space for them to have access to.
I don't understand that either, and I know this is not
Daily's Place segments people and separates everybody. Why can't they have it?
But I don't understand why, and this is sort of diverting from NXT a little bit. I don't know why they went to something as big as a ball diamond and still made it feel as small as an arena.
Yeah, they put a roof on their ball diamond, on the field
Yeah.
itself. They closed in their Thunderdome. I'm not sure why either. I don't know if it was something production-wise they had to do for the lights to show up on TV, or something they had to enclose the pyro. I really don't know, but it's not great on that.
I do think the CWC is an immense accomplishment, because not only, I mean, they showed how flexible it is when they managed to do war games in it.
Yes.
I mean, a little bit cramped.
Seemed like it would work.
A little bit cramped, to be fair, but they made it work. I mean, somebody said a bunch of times, like, before they had to use it for shows, they had 7 practice rings in there. So you can do it. You just have to move the furniture around. But also, like, they've kept it dark. They've done the Thunderdome interactive thing, but they've kept it minimal. They've got Trons on the side that encompass the entrance, as well as Trons just on the front, which I think is a big thing. Like you say, they're not having to focus on the rampway as much. The fence behind the plexi, it seems like a small little detail, but it gives it sort of like that older school, like Raw is War feeling, almost.
That hardcore vibe to it.
Remember when Raw was good?
Pretty much.
Back in the day. And like I say, the crowd thing is weird. Like, NXT can have it in a small venue. Why can't Raw and SmackDown do it in a bigger venue? AEW, I don't want to dip too much into that, because we're going to dip into the conversation between me and Guapo, but obviously they had Daly's Place from day one, which I think is a really underappreciated advantage that AEW has over NXT when you talk about, like, comparing how the two shows feel week to week and all that. They have a big building. Their show's going to feel bigger than even in the CWC, which we've said is great, but it's still small. The first couple of weeks of the Thunderdome, even if nothing worked, even if we made the joke that the power would go out or the internet would die and all the fans would go away, you're still in a bigger building. Even if there's no lights and smoke and mirrors, being in a bigger building makes a difference.
It really does.
So I think they counteracted that as best they could with the facilities they had at the time. Nobody was there to donate them a football field at the time. That's not a shot. It's just a fact. I think NXT, and it's so weird to say it because they're all under the WWE umbrella. NXT flourished in their production, in their style, in their unique atmosphere, head and shoulders above Raw, SmackDown. NXT UK has its own feel too, but they're in a TV studio, so everything's a little too shiny, a little too glossy. I watched a couple episodes. I was going to start reviewing them, but they're still in the no crowd era, and it's way too weird of a step back.
Yeah.
Maybe when they get crowds again, I'll start looking at that again.
It is oddly uncomfortable, though.
I still have to watch that Dragunov and Walter match all the way through. Every single person whose opinion means anything to me on Twitter has told me that I need to go watch that match, yourself included. Yes. I know they killed each other. Like, I absolutely know that they killed each other.
Yeah, that's my favorite of the year.
Oh man. Anyways,
and that match, the Dragunov match, with Walter, that ended up working out with no fans.
Oh, I've heard a lot of people make the statement that that's the kind of match that you could only have in front of no fans.
Yes, because hearing the fans cheer would have taken away from hearing the intensity of them killing each other, essentially. Yeah. And it was one of the most hardcore matches without weapons being used that I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, that's another thing I've heard going around. It was the most hardcore, not hardcore match out there. But I mean, I don't want to say it's to be expected because obviously that those two guys put a shift in. But I do think that is the one thing that NXT UK has going for it, or one of the things that they have going for it, because everything they do comes off more brutal. I mean, you see it when Pete Dunne comes over now to like main roster NXT. You see it when the grizzled young veterans come over. Even when somebody like a Rhea Ripley comes over, who we're gonna talk about ad nauseum, I'm sure, when we get to the last chapter of our focus on the women's division, which is still coming. Yes. It's just kind of on pause at the moment. But I mean, it's a different attitude over there, and you see big, like, slapping meat, as Big E would say, type guys like your Walters, like your Dave Mastiffs, like the guys from Gallus, like I don't know who else. I can't think of any other names off the top of my head because of course I can't. But they're killers. It's like me watching old school WWE who never really watched ECW, but when you see 2 or 3 guys come over from ECW and you're like, I see they've got a thing going on. All those wrestlers, they like to kill each other. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different feeling for sure.
And I just and it's people like Shayna Baszler, it's people like Pete Dunne. I think Kyle O'Reilly started doing it a bit too. It's the heavy hitting stuff. It's also the joint manipulation. The joint manipulation, especially with something like a Pete Dunne match where he's like, oh yeah, he's going to work on your shoulder, but then it's going to be your elbow, and then it's going to be your wrist, and then guess what? Then it's going to be your hands, then it's going to be your fingers. I remember watching him fight Matt Riddle before they were a tag team, and he started doing the joint manipulation to Matt Riddle's feet. Yeah, and I'm just like, that's so something you never see, that's unexpected, and it's just like, okay, I don't want to go around with broken toes. Like, that's not a thing we need to do. To be fair, because I'm going to do it on the other side as well, we're going to get to the highlights, but NXT's not perfect.
No.
By any other measure. There are some lowlights. I scratched a couple literally like 5 minutes before we sat down to record. But if I said to you, with an honest tone, a couple lowlights, a couple things that NXT has to work on, especially going into 2021.
For me, one of the biggest disappointments was TakeOver 30. I mean, that show, the only thing that was a saving grace was Adam Cole and Pat McAfee. I know it was a weird point in time for them with COVID and everything. And they definitely tried, and Karrion Kross getting injured was unfortunate so early in that match. But it felt odd. And was just kind of an uncomfortable night. It didn't really, I liked the Balor and Thatcher match, but even that felt like it could have been better. It was still good, but...
See, here's where my sense of timing is way off. Was that the only actual takeover that took place with no crowd?
I believe so. I believe that was the one, because it was still in Full Sail, but...
See, and that's just we're going to talk about Pat McAfee, obviously, but like that, we talk about Rhea Ripley debuting at WrestleMania. This was Pat McAfee debuting full stop, thrown into what is relatively a main event match on what should be a pay-per-view with no crowd to bounce off of, especially being the character that he is.
And he killed it.
Yeah. And he absolutely killed it, and like all those elements just make it better and better and better.
He was the biggest takeaway from that night, but everything else just kind of was a disappointment or fell flat, unfortunately.
Which is unfortunate because I think as much as the wrestlers must have gone in, because TakeOver itself is a brand.
Yes.
Like when they decided to just cancel the TakeOver that was associated with WrestleMania and just have those matches over the following weeks of NXT, I think that was better than trying to have an empty TakeOver. Now, I still wanted to see those matches, obviously. I remember, I'm going to backtrack a little bit into the COVID stuff. The very first episode of NXT that they did, and I said, like, I had already seen, the first empty show we saw was a SmackDown, and then the second one was a Raw, and then we're like, what are they going to do with NXT? And it turned out that it was basically like, what's his name? Nosferatu fucker. And I think it was him and Triple H just talking about NXT, and I think they'd thrown together literally like a clip show because they didn't know what they were gonna do. And I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this. I'm not gonna review it because this is depressing as fuck. This is my show now. Like, it's different. I think
exactly.
I think everybody. I don't want to say everybody, but I know I heard it from a lot of people and it resonated with me. You and I have talked about it before. No matter what side you're on, the good wrestling happens on Wednesday. Like, whether
no
you're
like you said, whether you're AEW or
whether
NXT.
you're AEW, NXT. I know there's a lot of people that still have some fondness in their heart for Impact. I'm sort of putting them to the side for the minute. So when we closed down and we had like the empty Friday, the empty SmackDown, It's like, okay, like as a one-off, as something new and different and kooky and weird, and you had Bayley waving at the no fans, and you had Miz doing the whole "if you disagree with me, why don't you say something" type thing. It was funny once.
Yeah.
And then we got into Raw, and it's like, oh, okay, it's kind of cringe. And then it crept up onto Wednesday, and everybody got like, I don't want to say tense because I don't want to be like over dramatic, but everybody's like, if you're a wrestling fan, this is where it's going to hit, because this is where the good wrestling happens. And I'm like, I'm not even going to watch it. Fuck it. And then like going on, I continued doing my reviews, obviously, because if you've been listening to this show long enough, you know that the NXT reviews are kind of the flagpole of this show right now. But it's such a bizarre feeling, and it's like to have that brand taken away. I think the point I'm trying to get around to is TakeOver is supposed to be everything that is the best about NXT. So TakeOver itself is a brand. So I think when you had a dead TakeOver, no, it wasn't that great, and there was a lot of plot holes and a lot of things that were lacking. But I think both the wrestlers and the fans went into that show already a bit defeated, like already a bit sort of expecting something bad to a certain degree.
I can accept that.
I'm not saying it. I'm never going to say that it defends a lackluster show, but I just think at that particular time, that's where everybody went in and was like, we shouldn't even call this a takeover type of thing.
It kind of felt that way, that it didn't live up to the standards of what they had.
Maybe we should just not try to have a takeover right now. Let's preserve what that means a little bit.
As far as positives for NXT, like we said, Pat McAfee, that was an amazing debut. He's been one of the top heels, top talkers on the mic. He's obviously a standout. One of the biggest negatives for me of this year with NXT would be Tegan Nox getting injured once again. Such a disappointment.
You know what it is? That is such an obvious thing that I didn't even write it down, but Jesus Christ. That's heartbreaking. I don't know what else to say.
As one of the biggest, negatives for AEW for me is their women's division. You look at NXT, and that's one of their strengths, their top strengths. And then you see Dakota Kai attacking Tegan Nox, and it's like, all right, this is great. We've got that for War Games, and then this great story. They have this amazing match, and then Tegan Nox starts to kind of advance herself more, and then she's injured again.
And as much as the women's division really has been the focal point of NXT, you have to imagine that if this girl didn't have the worst luck in the world, she'd be right up there with the Toni Storms and the Shotzi Blackhearts and all that sort of thing. Because there's a lot of heels and a lot of cool people, but there's not. I don't think they really have the. What do I always say? The Snow White baby face, like what Bayley used to be, what Dakota Kai used to be. I think that was going to fall on Tegan Nox because she has that era to her. I think the ones, and we've already talked about them, so I'll talk about them here too. Is Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter. Either one of them could be that star in NXT, but I almost want to keep them as a team because they're an actual tag team that hasn't been broken up yet.
Yes, and one that complements each other, works really good together, and is believable as a team. They don't feel thrown together.
Yeah. Well, I've said that.
Another thing from this year, it started a little bit before, but the Broserweights, Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne. With them, they've had history, and them working together to take on, how much fish can Bobby Fish fry, if Bobby Fish could fry fish.
See, and that's, I almost accept that as an exception, though, because they're making a tradition out of not only the Dusty Classic, not only the Dusty Classic, but every Dusty Classic they've done. They've put in a bunch of teams and one thrown together team. There was Balor and Joe. There was, there was Dunn and Strong until Undisputed Era happened.
Yeah, exactly.
There was Aleister Black and Ricochet, which people wanted to see them do their own thing when they went to the main roster. And you know what? As much of we hate the odd couple, but they worked as a team.
They worked great. I was shocked they didn't win the titles at Mania.
Yeah. They had to put.
That's one of my worries now because they're apparently WWE is trademarking the
Hardy Bros.
Yeah, the Hardy Bros name, and that's one of the things that they're like, really trying to push is them being together for a long time.
And I
don't want to see Hardy and Riddle together. That's why they took the Matt name away from him, so it wouldn't be Matt and Jeff.
And see, I thought they would have left that in just to take that shot.
I had thought so as well, but I guess they don't want them being looked down on.
I thought they were going to take his last name away, so he would have just been Matt. So it would be Matt and Jeff Hardy. Sort of like before Cody got his name back, it was like Cody and Brandy Rhodes. Like they would have done a very similar thing. So not only would you be taking a shot at Cody Rhodes, but you'd also be taking a shot at Matt Hardy, obviously. But Matt Hardy already took a shot when he came off that scissor lift. Anyways. Want to talk about the negative aspects of NXT this year. Let's talk about how cursed their main title has been. I mean,
it really is, sadly.
3. And one of them never even got to hold it. Keith Lee getting sacrificed to the main roster. I'll call that part of the curse. Keith Lee...
definitely. Then Karrion Kross is injured.
But Keith Lee had to give up the North American title because he got the main title, which is fine. That kind of makes sense, whatever. Only to drop that to Karrion Kross and get, killed on the main roster. Karrion Kross got injured and had to hand it over to Finn Balor, who also got injured but got to keep it while he was injuring his next challenger, Kyle O'Reilly. Now, I will say...
other favorite matches of the year.
Oh, my God. I
mean, that was so damn good.
It was one that I look forward to from a learning perspective for me. Because you know me, other than if, Destiny Wrestling, check off the Spaz Phoenix, bingo card.
Bingo card.
But other than that, I don't watch a lot of indie stuff. I haven't watched Impact a whole lot in the last couple of years. I've never really watched ROH, and I don't really follow any other indies. So what I know of guys like Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, Roderick Strong, is what I've seen in NXT. But, you hear things. And you hear about, wait till you see this guy in a singles run. And I'm like, he's really good. He's really good in the tag team with one guy. He's really good in a tag team with the other guy. He's really good when they work as a foursome, giggity. But as a singles guy, you never really saw it. And I'm like, and you know what? Finn Balor is giving back to NXT as much as he's using it to rebrand himself as well. So if there's anybody that's going to give him a good match, it's going to be Balor. I didn't think as far as a bruised liver and a broken jaw.
No, we didn't see it going to that extent. Even looking back, Tony Storm and Kaylee Ray, the I Quit match that they had in the beginning of this year, that was a standout. Thankfully, there were fans there for that. Another one of my favorites happened early on in the year, too, which was at Worlds Collide. It was the DIY when they took on Mustache Mountain.
Oh, the heart and souls of the two respective brands. Mm-hmm. And, I really try, and again, Destiny, check it off the bingo card, it's fine. I've met Mustache Mountain, and I know that they're, really chill dudes. I've gotten to speak to them a little bit, and I've gotten to speak to Jordan Devlin and Pete Dunne, too, which is really, really awesome. But at the same time, how good are DIY? DIY have drawn comparisons to, everybody. DIY, I heard somebody say this a while ago. If you go back to when there was that big triangle of stars, it was the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. DIY is the best elements of all of those teams. They can do the hardcore stuff, they can do the high flying stuff, they can do the character stuff, they can do the comedy.
They've got themselves covered in every aspect.
We're gonna get to them in a second, but the Worlds Collide thing. I have to believe, because they were saying before all this shit went down that Worlds Collide was going to the idea of doing these Worlds Collide pay-per-views was going to be a separate brand outside of doing takeovers. And I thought that's so good. That's just something that can happen. It doesn't need to be oh my God, it's Survivor Series, brand versus brand, and because Raw and SmackDown is just red and blue shit, whereas the NXT brands, and I can't explain it any other way other than they feel they don't feel like competing brands. They feel like brother brands almost.
Yeah.
So, like, they don't get together to shit on each other. They get together to show the best of each side and bring each other up. Whereas Raw and SmackDown just feels like petty T-shirt crap. I was really hoping, like, Worlds Collide is a good enough name and it's appropriate enough. I thought with all the names that they're bringing back, you know, they brought back Great American Bash. They finally brought back Halloween Havoc. I thought if they were going to do something between the two brands of NXT, I thought it was going to be takeover bragging rights. Because I thought
that would have been good.
There's just something to that. I mean, like, the name change shouldn't mean as much as it does, but it does. If we're going to talk about the lowlights, I have to, you know, wear my heart on my sleeve. We don't have much of a tag division.
No, sadly.
I'm glad to see the Grizzled Young Veterans in there now. I'm glad to see Birch and Lorcan with some character. I'm glad to see Breezango. I'm glad to see the guys from Legado del Fantasma if they get in the mix. I think we have the building blocks. I think we have, like, once they're able to, they're going to start. I know they said when they finally reopened NXT UK, they were going to put a big focus on their tag team division. And maybe
that was their point.
And maybe that can trickle over. But if all we're gonna do is like take the Grizzled Young Veterans and take Imperium and take maybe Mustache Mountain because this NXT has adopted them as well, then you're not doing anything to help NXT UK, which is already a brand that nobody's watching. Thing is,
yeah, exactly. Not enough people are seeing it to begin with.
It's the one thing that I will say about NXT that does sort of mirror most people's problems with Raw and SmackDown, is they don't have a tag team division. But it's not like they don't have the parts to make one.
That's the thing, they really do.
The one thing WWE is not missing is talent. And I include NXT in that, right? We're going to talk about it more in a second, but this new teaming of Gargano and Theory, I've seen them in exactly one tag team match so far, and they've already meshed so well that I don't think they necessarily need to win the titles, but I hope they get into that mix.
Just so they get that recognition.
Even if they're putting somebody else over. Like, it's a weird mix because Gargano can afford to be putting somebody over, but I don't think Theory necessarily can. So if they're putting people over, make sure Gargano's the one getting the pin, make sure Theory was taken out for a legitimate reason, do all those story building blocks that you have to do within the match. But those two, you take Gargano and Theory, you throw in Grizzled Young Veterans, Mustache Mountain, Legado del Fantasma, Breezango, Lorcan and Birch, who now have character. I have to keep saying that because they didn't really have it before. And then the only other ones, and how can I forget Everrise? Everrise rules! And then the one bland team, I'm sorry, they are in that role now. They are the bland team that you put in with the other team that you're trying to get over, is the two guys from Imperium.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're not good, it's just that they're not exciting.
Eichner and...
Fabian Eichner and Marcel Barthel.
There we go. Terrible with, names and whatnot, but...
Which is terrible because, you know what, they're two talented guys, and you know what, when there was no teams, they were a team to hold up that division. I mean, and then, on top of that, any combination you want to throw in from the Undisputed Era is always going to be a factor.
And the fact that they're still as predominantly dominant as they are, the Undisputed Era, after all this time, is great. Yeah. So impressive.
Yeah, and you know what the funny thing is, not too long ago we were talking about, they were going to split up the Undisputed Era, but now because of COVID they've sort of dragged it out and they did the Pat McAfee thing. I'm good with Undisputed Era just not. The one thing I will say is the way that they've handled the split of New Day on the main roster. And, they all kind of just went and did their own thing. Like, they didn't have a big, falling out for no reason. They didn't have, Big E didn't turn heel or whatever. He's got the IC.
Yeah, they didn't have to break them up for the first time in ever.
Yeah.
In a permanent way.
So, you know what? I think you could do the same. I get it, Undisputed Era are, cocky, borderline, tweener type characters, and you think Ego would lead it that way. But you know what? If the Undisputed Era just quietly goes off and does like their own things, and they're still like notably kayfabe, like friends in the back that like have each other's back when they need it, I don't think they need to have a like, you could have a couple great matches between all of them, but I don't think you need to have that definite split like WWE likes to do with everybody else.
That's true too.
The last thing I've got in the lowlights, and then we're going to get into the highlights, and then hopefully the conversation's going to pick up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a couple guys that aren't hitting, and NXT hasn't quite gotten the message yet. For me, and these are guys that sometimes hit, sometimes don't. One that I just don't want on my TV at all. Loomis, Grimes, Thatcher, and Velveteen Dream.
Velveteen Dream,
for different reasons.
yes, it's sadly marred in controversy. We've covered that enough, but they didn't do enough to clear his name, so it's just been this uncomfortable awkwardness that surrounds him entirely.
But you know what I find though, like even the speaking out stuff aside, and I shouldn't sweep it aside because it is a serious issue, Roddy Rock.
Yeah, but if that didn't exist, he was still becoming boring.
He was bland.
Losing. Yeah, he was becoming bland and very contemporary.
And the thing is I think he got more, I don't know what the word is. His character got more sarcastic as people were getting sick of him.
Yeah,
which is
so he became more smarmy and
it's just the wrong kind of heat. Thatcher, you and I have said before, is good in spots. He does have a fight pit match coming up with Ciampa that I am looking forward to, because I think that's a situation where he's positioned to succeed.
Yes. Because they're utilizing him properly in something that makes him shine.
Yeah.
He's a very good technical wrestler, but his promos are okay too. It's just a lot of it has felt very samey.
What I thought was there was gonna be a story between him and one of his students, and one of his students was really gonna step up out of the shadow. But what happened was you got that kid Tyler Rust, who popped out of the shadow instead and went and had a match with Ciampa. And this kid, I've seen in exactly 2 matches, and I already want to know what he's going to do next.
Yeah, exactly.
He's looking pretty sick as well. Grimes is only kind of on this list for me because Grimes is literally just like, he's not my cup of tea. But enough people.
I'm not crazy about him either. Some people really like him. I don't hate him by any means. I don't despise him. I'm just not a big fan of his.
Yeah.
I appreciate the character, but I can see that he's putting work in and he's trying. It's just, again, just like you said, it's just not something that's clicking with me.
Yeah, it's funny though because he's a weird one, and I'm sure somebody will look at me when I speak so highly of Shotzi Blackheart. He's one of those characters that even though it's not for me, I can enjoy other people enjoying him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he is a lot of fun, and when he got into the more silly stuff with the zombies and the Halloween stuff and whatever, like, and he was like the over-the-top reactions and the goofy stuff, I think is where he shines. So in the right minutes, he's good too. Loomis is the one that kills me. Like, just why is Loomis?
They could do a lot with him too. They're just not, and it's been very ass backwards. So you're not going to have him speak, okay, but then you have to have him be, really strong in other areas, and they're not doing that either. And they kind of like shoehorn this gimmick onto him without any explanation or justification either. So it's a narrative that's missing so many pieces that you have no idea which end is up or down.
And the funny thing about that is, I think they think he's a gimmick that speaks for himself. Like, he's got like that stoic, silent, like serial killer look to him.
Yeah, but
nobody's afraid of him except for Cameron Grimes.
Like, and that seemed more like a joke than an actual threat.
Like, when you've got supernatural characters like The Fiend and real-world assholes like Randy Orton setting people on fire, Buddy coming in like his dirty pants and like staring at you is not scary.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know what else to say other than that. Like, and it's not even a case of, I don't get his character, but he's good in the ring. I don't find him that entertaining in the ring. I'm sure there's a character halting happening there as well, but...
Yeah, And some of the stuff has been okay, but other things have been not so great. So.
All right, the last one I'm going to say for the lowlights, in the era of what the hell's going on here now? Bam! Sorry, my phone's going off because I thought I turned it off and apparently I didn't. In the era of COVID, in the era of trying to keep things new and fresh and different and whatever, this has been the year of cinematic matches.
Yes.
And a lot of them have either been good or at least been fun or at least, oh my god, like so bad it's good, like the Money in the Bank, whatever. I'm sorry, and partially it's because Velveteen Dream was in it. The street fight, the like backlot brawl, wasn't it.
It was just bad. It was just boring. I didn't care for most of the cinematic matches that happened this year, sadly.
See,
you know,
and the thing
I didn't
is,
even like the Money in the Bank. You and Joe kind of had the same stance of like, so bad it's good, or some of the stuff was funny, and then I usually even like some of the spot comedy. I hated it. I just could not get my head wrapped around any of it.
It just looks like, okay, we're going to have a fight like we would have on the outside of the ring, except we're going to step outside. The thing is, and I should clarify my stance on something like the Money in the Bank. You knew it was going to be dumb, and they intentionally leaned into the dumb stuff, like the cameos and Doink showing up and the food fight and all that. So they leaned into all the stuff that is silly.
That could have been fine as long as they had a sensible outcome for this, something planned out that wasn't a Asuka attacking Baron Corbin to get the briefcase, which made no sense, and then she doesn't even get to cash in. She was just handed the title because Becky's pregnant, so they should have just vacated the title and let her hold on to the briefcase. And then on top of it, you get friggin' Otis to catch the briefcase out of, randomly out of midair. Oh, it falls into his lap, kind of. That's the comedy. But then they do nothing with that. He loses the briefcase. Miz cashes in, fails, and then gets the briefcase back. So I mean, it's just been marred in.
And I'll tell you something that's bad, but that works for me. The reason I'm able to laugh at that and the street fight between Dream and Cole bugs me is because I give a shit about NXT. Like I'm so beyond
investment in most of the main roster stories.
I'm so beyond caring with Raw and SmackDown, and you and I have said it before, like, you can nitpick the stuff that's good, like the Roman heel turn, and I like the Fiend and Alexa Bliss stuff, obviously, because it's me. But I'm so beyond caring, like, if it's not going to be good, make it really, really bad. I haven't lost that hope with NXT. I hold NXT, and I've said this before, I've said it in reviews, I've said it in conversations with you, I've said it in conversations with GUAPO and other people. I hold NXT to a higher standard. Like, so bad it's good doesn't work for me with NXT because it's my and they've I think that maybe that's not fair in one sense, but in the other sense, like, you've earned me expecting more from you, so I expect more.
Yeah, they set up those expectations. They built them themselves.
And also, like, you can find Adam Cole something better to do than head into a dark alley with a diddler.
Pretty much. And I mean, as much as we've been, and this is main roster stuff too, I mean, we'll get back to NXT, but praising Roman at this point with everybody being so high on him, you forget in a way that he started off this year in a horrible feud with Baron Corbin.
The dog food.
After the Rumble, with all the dog food angles and all that nonsense. Now, the Royal Rumble match they had, the Falls Count Anywhere, was one of those so ridiculous it was good moments. Because, you had Baron Corbin in a porta potty and the Usos flying from, the sky and just there were all these crazy, moments and spears on a dugout and they were all over the place. So it was a fun match.
See, I think one of the main things
horrible.
I think one of the main things that made that match work is it was the one match that made use of, holy shit, look at the huge stadium we're in. Because I don't think anything else that happened at the Royal Rumble, because everything else happened in the ring. I don't think anything else really made use of the ring. But I also will say, if I am going to give some credit to the main roster, you bring up something like the dog food shit with Baron Corbin and all that sort of thing. And yeah, that was terrible, and yeah, it never should have been done, and yeah, it was shitty booking. But that makes what he's doing now even more impressive, because it makes the turnaround even bigger.
Yeah, even greater. The contrast is even more severe. Absolutely.
Okay,
as far as my favorite things for NXT this year, I really, really, like I said, Portland would be my favorite takeover. I really love that main event with Adam Cole and Ciampa.
Yep.
That was such a great NXT title match. And there was a lot really good on that night. Keith Lee and Dijakovic for the NXT North American Championship. Dakota Kai beat Tegan Nox in that street fight. That
was the match of the night for me.
Yep.
And
my favorite too.
It's so funny because we've talked about the fact before, like the women's division, we've crowed about the women's division, and when it got to the point of, oh my god, it's like you can have a second women's match on the card. And I will tell you, at Portland, I'm sure it was great, but I don't remember what the other women's match was because
It was Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. And I had to look it up too to remember it.
Maybe
it
that's
was
why
good, but it wasn't like a standout.
Mean Girls, Sasha Banks 2.0 taking up Rhea Ripley's time. Anyways,
and then we're going to be Balor and Gargano, and the Bros are weights taking on Undisputed Era.
So, Balor Gargano was sort of one that came up out of nowhere too and snuck up on us. But I gotta say, like, it's much like when I was at TakeOver Toronto. The women's championship match was not the great. I love Mia Yim, I do. But that match with Shayna Baszler wasn't great. But I got round one of babyface Candice versus heel Io. And you know what? And we're going to talk about this sometime next year. Maybe the tag team division isn't necessarily the answer. Maybe you bring in a mid-card women's title. That's all I'm going to say. The little teaser for you for something coming later down the line. But no, Nox and Kai and the street fight and everybody, even people that like them, were like, here's two tiny girls. Neither one of them is fighting for the title right now. They're going to have a street fight, but how street fight is it going to be? And it's one of those they literally went out and proved you wrong situations.
Yeah.
Like I say, love Dakota Kai as a face, love her even more as a heel. Her turning heel made Tegan Nox's babyface better.
Yeah, she really did. That it really helped.
It's that good friends, better enemies thing. Now, if Tegan Nox ever turns heel and they get together back as a tag team again, like, no offense to Raquel Gonzalez, but I mean, if we see them back together as a team again, it'll be great. Because heel, Kai, and Nox together versus Catanzaro and Carter is a dream match. Is a dream tag team match. Like, put that in the middle or even near the top of any takeover, and it belongs there. I mean, you throw on whatever your main title match is, and that's fine. That's the other thing I meant to say when we were talking about the lowlights. The one upside of the cursed NXT title was that it gave them an opportunity to prove that their other divisions could take that main event spot. Mostly the women, but obviously also the North American Championship and sometimes even the Cruiserweight Championship all had a little bit of a chance to rotate through that higher spotlight with not having a world title contention there.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Now, I want to talk about some high points. We've already sort of touched on it. The creation of the NXT Fight Pit.
Yeah, that's something that I'm excited to see. I'm looking forward to.
I like that NXT is creating its own signature matches. Like, War Games wasn't a new idea, but they sort of reinvented the concept. They made it their own. It's their thing. In our last podcast, we talked about now there is such a thing as War Games season, right? Now, you get something like the Fight Pit. The Fight Pit could be their answer to, like, Hell in the Cell. Like, if the feud gets to the point where it's, nothing else can solve this feud, throw it in the Fight Pit. The added bonus of having Kurt Angle in there, I could have taken or left that. I thought they did it really well. I hope they don't do that again for the Ciampa Thatcher thing. But the Fight Pit is just, it's so, like, it's the whole no ropes aspect of it as well. I just think it's such a unique concept. It goes back to the Lion's Den days. And fuck, you couldn't have picked two better guys to do the first one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They really got, a good grasp on who to utilize for new matches and, new types to basically make it special for the brand. Other things that I was really impressed with NXT this year, like I said, the recovery throughout the COVID times was impressive. The one thing that I was going to say I would nitpick with them is I wish they would, some people feel like they don't focus on AEW enough. I feel like they are a bit reactionary at times, a bit too much. And I wish they would kind of focus on their own things rather than say like, Halloween Havoc was fun. I'm just using it as an example, but they're like, we got to have Halloween Havoc because they're having Halloween, Slamboree. And, they've kind of done that where it's got to be tit for tat. And I wish that wasn't always the case. I wish they could focus more on their own doings. That's when they get.
I think towards the very tail end of the year, they have done that.
Yeah, they started to get better about it.
Because Halloween Havoc was something that they announced pretty well in advance. Halloween Havoc is also, in general, a great fucking thing. I'm going to get to that in a second as well, because I have some thoughts on Halloween Havoc. I've already sort of talked about the creation of the CWC. I've got the women's division on here. I think it goes without saying. I think you and I have spent the entire year basically saying that NXT's women's division is one of the best things in wrestling right now. Absolutely. I do want to say, yes, I'm biased, but I like Shotzi Blackheart. Obviously, I like Shotzi Blackheart. The amount of focus that they've given Shotzi Blackheart is very interesting because they haven't made her a main eventer. They've made her sort of a mid-card gatekeeper. Like, she's the one you face before you go for your title shot. Yeah. And I think it's very unique that they've sort of decided that she's a mid-carder, like she's the strong mid-carder, but for the amount of focus she's had for a mid-carder, because I guess they figure the ones that are fighting over the title at the time can make their own hype. Think about the last two pay-per-views, or pay-per-view-ish events, both focused around Shotzi Blackheart.
Yeah, she's been one of the main focal points, and not even having a match most times. So.
She was the focal point of Halloween Havoc, which was something
being the host.
Which was something I know you listened to the Lillian Garcia interview.
Yeah.
The fact that they literally came to her and basically were like, "This seems like it would be right up your alley. We'd like you to host it." And then, no, it wasn't the main event, but a lot of the advertising and theme and everything of War Games was also based around Shotzi. Like, it was her doing promos were all the commercials for War Games. It was her tank that was the logo for War Games. So no, she was never in a title picture. She's always sort of orbiting the title picture, which is awesome, but she has more focus as a mid-carder than the champion has sometimes. And I think that's really, to put that much focus on somebody who right now is in a mid-card spot is fucking awesome. Because they're doing a lot of character work, they're really, really, from the sounds of it anyway, they're really sitting with her to make her gimmick with her. We know the story about, like, when she got carjacked and Triple H was like, "We're going to get you a new helmet. Like, we have the ability to do it. Like, we know the helmet is part of your shtick. Like,
yeah.
What do you need?" And then the tank at War Games.
Yeah, that was a great moment, too.
The tank at War Games with the actual missile that she fired at Dakota Kai.
That was cool.
Last thing I'm going to say, unless you've got another highlight that you want to hit on.
That's all that's coming to mind at this point. What do you got?
It's sort of three things in one, because one led to the next. But in as far as the cinematic matches, I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I absolutely loved it from a storytelling point of view. One last beat between Gargano and Ciampa.
It was good, but I don't think I enjoyed it as much as you did, and I wanted to. I really did, but. Yeah. I think my hardest takeaway was just the length of it.
Yeah. The only thing that bugged me about it is why they were advertising a empty arena match in an already empty arena era. I thought that was a little bit awkward, but the way they shot it, I think this was what who was it? Edge and Orton that did the greatest match ever or whatever, when they did all the extra shit with the sound and the videography and all that sort of thing. I think this was the more successful version of that. I mean, obviously in a no DQ standpoint. But the way I'm sort of lumping all this together, that led to the Gargano couple heel turn, which led to now what we have as The Way.
The Way. the Gargano way, which is only getting better recently. I really like what they did this week. And like I said, too, it worked out that even though Candice is injured, with the way thing going on, she could still be a focal point on TV, which is great. So
I think it's such a unique dynamic, and I'm sure somebody in the comment section will mention sometime that it's happened before. I think it's so unique that they, as a couple, both have proteges in Indy Hartwell and Austin Theory. And as I say, when Candice is better, I hope Indy Hartwell and her have a tag team, some sort of tag team feud. Again, Catanzaro and Carter, only because they're like, the lovable Snow White babyface team. You want to put heels against them, do Candice and Indy. But as I said, Gargano and Theory need to mix it up in that men's tag division. And I think they can both be threats in both of those tag team divisions, and at the same time they can still pursue like the North American Championship or the Women's Championship or whatever the case may be. Austin Theory might get the North American Championship, and
yeah,
Gargano.
could happen that way.
I'm not going to lie, if Gargano wants to get himself back in the main event scene, I would love to see Austin Theory versus Gargano for the North American Championship, and they recreate the finger poke of doom. Because they're just the type of snarky, sarcastic team that could make that work. Normally, I wouldn't suggest something like that because, you want to protect the value of a title and the value of a title change, especially on NXT, who are relatively good with that. But they're just the type that can do it. And if you want to put a little caveat on it as well, you want to talk about how NXT saved the Cruiserweight division. It's sort of been taken on and off the back burner, but Phantasma with Escobar at the head and the other two guys by his side, I still think they're going to give them the tag team title belts at some point so they can have that whole all three of us have belts thing.
Could be.
There's so many like low key WWE is bringing back factions. I mean, I think it started with, unless you disagree, I think it started with the Undisputed Era, because Undisputed Era are awesome. Obviously, on the main roster, with limited success, obviously they have the New Day, but they also have Retribution, which is weird, and the Hurt Business, which, hey, they're all, they all kind of look alike. Legado del Fantasma is a decent little team. Legado del Fantasma is legitimate, even though they're not on all the time. They do feel legitimate when they're there. Obviously, you have Imperium over in the UK. You have Gallus over in the UK. The Way is a completely different take on a faction, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I really do think, without too much hyperbole, WWE has started factions again, and I think you have to trace that back to Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era. But all of those stories could end up with, hey, all of us have gold, and all of them are slightly different combinations of who you think would have what gold.
And yeah, no kidding. And they were the ones, too, Undisputed Era, they can always, they can play that support role for a little bit and then come right back into the main event scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what was I going to say?
As far as their competitor, AEW, goes, I mean, their women's division, that's been obviously one of our talking points of the year. They've dealt with the pandemic best they could as well. They kind of figured it out a little bit sooner with fans being able to be in attendance. Not that long after the pandemic started, they got into Daly's place and were able to keep fans, socially distanced and in their own little pod. That seemed to be working.
Yeah, I think that's something that they will be able to adopt eventually. Like I say, going back to mainstream WWE, specifically the Royal Rumble. I mean, I know we want to get fans back in general, but specifically the Rumble, because if we get past Rumble and still don't have any fans and we're still like this, and we get to next year's WrestleMania, it'll be weird if we get to Mania, because that'll mark like one full wrestling calendar year.
Yeah, one entire year of dealing with this nonsense.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure I'm going to get, as soon as you and I ring off, I'm going to be talking to GUAPO about AEW. I'm sure he'll tell me all the reasons we're wrong. But on a hopeful, positive, moving forward note, other than getting crowds actually in the building, what do you want for NXT in 2021?
I want to see them continue to have the best women's division in roster out of all of current televised wrestling, and I want them to push the envelope. Focus on your women's division more so than you have. Make them the real fighting grace that you want to present. Put your best foot forward, because I feel like that is something that's really missing at this point in time, that fans would get behind more if they made more of a big deal out of it. If they really positioned their women's title as as equally as important as the NXT men's title, I think they can do it, and I think that would really help bring in some more fans as well. I also hope to have them keep telling long-term, compelling stories, as they've been trying to do. They've done a few things with Shotzi. They've done some great stuff with the Gargano family. Now with Finn Balor going forward with the Undisputed Era, there's a lot there, and I hope they just continue to drip feed us content like they're doing.
I'm going to piggyback on your comments on the women's division. It won't be anything new. I've been saying this for a while. Because it is the title that Hops brands, I want the women's tag team title to spend some time in NXT, if not be moved to NXT like the Cruiserweight Championship. I want the Cruiserweight Championship to be on the back burner less. We've proven...
Yes, that as well.
We've proven through necessity this year that it doesn't always have to be the main title that is the main title. You can sort of cycle it back and put some focus on the cruiserweights, and you can cycle it back and put the women in the forefront like they have a lot this year. When we get the tag team division back to where it needs to be, then it's another story. But for right now, if you want to swap out the typical takeover spot that a tag team match would go in, use that spot in the meantime to focus on the cruiserweight division. Use that spot in the meantime to maybe put more focus on the North American Championship. If you're not going to have a strong men's division, and that's sort of a direction that they're going, and you do want to fill that slot by bringing the women's tag team title over for a minute, you can do that. You can have we've proven it this year more than once. You can have a takeover, you can have a special event without a men's title match on it, and throw something else in that spot. So, not saying it'll always succeed, but I want them to experiment with that main title not being the main title.
Exactly, because like I said, you can always insert a title match and it'll get you, clicks, views, and eyes. But if you really start to elevate that women's title, that could help them exponentially. Especially knowing that AEW, the best they have, I feel like right now, not from other companies. Yeah, they signed Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb, but that they had to procure elsewhere. The best they had, to me, was Britt Baker.
Yep.
So.
And I wouldn't mind her swapping over. That might be touching on another video we might be doing soon. My last comment, or my last sort of wish, and this is sort of controversial because I know NXT and AEW both are kind of praised for not having a pay-per-view a month and letting things breathe a little bit more. I think NXT has fallen a little bit lazily into the category of, hey, we're not going to have a pay-per-view every month, but we're going to throw in an elevated weekly episode here and there. What I would like, as sort of a trade-off, is maybe a couple less of those elevated Wednesday nights. Some of them have hit, some of them have missed. The Great American Bash out of nowhere wasn't really a thing. The Super Tuesday things was them making use of a schedule conflict, schedule change, whatever, which is fine. But maybe dial back the elevated Wednesdays and throw one more takeover into the mix. Because they used to go with, it's one Rumble weekend, one WrestleMania weekend, and then there's a gap before SummerSlam, and then you get one for Survivor Series. So I think in that gap between WrestleMania and SummerSlam, or those two periods of time, you could slot one more legitimate takeover in, especially because they're doing them on their own on Sundays now anyway.
They can definitely fit it in there.
I think if you cut out 2 or 3 elevated Wednesdays and keep it to solid, regular, weekly NXTs and throw in one more takeover, I think that's not a bad plan. And if I'm going to be
real, how fun and good War Games was to watch recently.
Yep. And that okay. Well, that's another more minor thing. I want them to permanently slot War Games into December.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea for them.
I
to
want
have,
War
every
Games.
December, after Survivor Series, there's War Games.
But I want
have it
War
come up
Games to be
after
the cap
Survivor
of the year.
Series.
Like, we talk, main roster, we always talk about, like, oh, it's a brand new year and we're going up into Royal Rumble season, right? If that's the beginning of the year for the main roster, there's no reason War Games can't be the end. It's like, they used to have really cool pay-per-view names in WWE. They used to have Armageddon, which is literally the end.
Yeah,
War
which
Game...
I guess they're bringing back, somebody had said.
Really?
Armageddon was being discussed in Judgment Day.
Nice. So it's not going to be just like, hey, this is WWE Triple Threat. I would like to say, though, at the same time, I don't know how, you'd have to be careful how you shuffle things around, and I think it would pretty much work out if you're going to add one proper pay-per-view to the NXT schedule. Make it Halloween Havoc.
I think that would be a great addition.
Make it one that's
especially with how well it worked on TV this year.
Yeah, but you know
Give
what?
that a format, 3 hours on the network.
Give it a format, give it a proper takeover schedule, but still keep in mind that, hey, we know that you guys think this much of takeover, but this is still the one where we're going to have a little bit more fun with it. You're going to have that, Dexter Loomis in the Haunted House of Terrors shit.
And it was a great night. It was super entertaining. There was something there for everybody, and there was a lot of great story payoffs, too. So
yep.
They really, outdid themselves with that show. And on top of it, like you said, to add another hour to that, I think would be fabulous.
And I mean, if you look at it the other way, this whole idea that they're doing in a couple weeks, and we're gonna preview that as well. Don't worry, guys. The New Year's Evil could be their beginning of the year takeover, like Royal Rumble is for the main roster. Like these ideas that they've thrown onto weekly shows, and we know why. We don't need to talk about why. Like, they are the seeds of good pay-per-view ideas. But that doesn't mean that I'm saying flip the switch, put them in a WWE mode, and give us a pay-per-view a month, because that's too far the other way.
Yeah, we don't need 12 a year, but a solid 6 would be perfect.
Yeah. Solid 6.
And on top of it, you figure how strongly they built Halloween Havoc, up to be essentially a takeover caliber show. They didn't need to put in that much more effort, and all it would have given us as fans would be probably one more match or another segment.
Yeah,
and that would have been perfect.
And it did work too, in the sense that you had somebody, and yes, I'm biased, it's fine. Somebody like Shotzi Blackheart who fully fit that, and you've got a host that's there and ready, and they did have Poppy again.
Yeah,
did they
don't have their NXT champion, so.
And they pulled off an entire pay-per-view worthy show without the champion. This is where I'm saying opportunities for the other thing. I do want to throw a little minor, honorable mention in there for the fact that, like we've said before, Poppy is basically the unofficial NXT house band.
Yeah.
Because I think that's awesome as well.
That role great.
Anyways, so all in all, we got some cool shit, even though 2020 kind of sucked. We're going to be back in a couple of days to talk about New Year's Evil. Why don't you tell them where to find you, buddy? Actually, before I let you tell them where to find you, this channel went through a lot of changes at the end of 2019 into 2020. I've changed a lot of things about how this channel is. Used to be me and Connor previewing pay-per-views. And then Connor went off and did his own thing, and then it was me and Kristen and GUAPO previewing pay-per-views. And then we all kind of mutually decided that the main roster of WWE kind of sucked. So what happened? we slotted Kristen over into the Flix Fix thing, which is awesome, and I'm really hoping that I get her on here to say her bit for the year. I don't know whether that's happening or not, because I don't have an answer on my phone. Definitely from the time that All In happened, I had GUAPO being my AEW guy, my indie guy, my occasionally, hey, what's going on over there in NWA guy. And then at the same time, I managed to reach up into the higher echelons of YouTube and pull out a guy named Jake DeMarco, who talks a lot about AEW on some other guy's show and say, hey, you want to come hang out with me and talk about a little bit of NXT? So we've all slotted into spots, man. I really do want to say for this year, for last year, for as long as you've been on here, we came on here to start initially to bitch about Sasha Banks.
Yeah, that was how it all started.
And look at how it's all gone from there. Man, I really do want to take the opportunity to say thank you for becoming part of the team, part of the family. We have a lot of fun. I hope it doesn't end anytime soon. Much appreciated, man.
Thank you so much for always having me on here, and I can't wait to interact soon enough with your other co-hosts and have one big, cross the streams powwow. And, it was funny that you also brought up the Sasha Banks part, because I had just heard earlier how people were complaining about her being just the outright hypocrite that she seems to be, because she's currently, blasting people on social media saying, oh, you just want attention posting your bikini pics. But she did the exact same thing herself, even now still does. So,
have you seen her on Instagram dressing like Ruby Riott? Gave herself fake tattoos and all.
Yes, I just saw that.
The one thing...
I got tagged in that.
It might be us on one side and GUAPO on the other side, but I think all of us have gotten together at one point or another to do really, really, really scalding content on the hypocritical bitch that is Sasha Banks. It's the heat that burns and ties that bind and all those other weird metaphors. I have to be awake to do a whole other recording. Jesus, fuck me.
You got this.
I do. Anyways, now that I've cut you off, now I'm going to cut you back in. Tell them where to find you, buddy.
You can find me on Twitter at Countdown Ended. You can also catch me on the Joe Cronin Show live after every WWE, NXT, or AEW pay-per-view or TV show. We go live to review the wrestling content. And you can also check me out on my channel. After the new year, I plan on putting up some new content. So we'll go from there. It'll be fun. And start getting some commentaries back up there. So it'll be good. But thank you so much, Spaz, for having me. Again, I'm glad you had a great holiday. Happy New Year. Thank you as always, and I look forward to doing more with you in the future.
All right, cheers, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. And we're back, and Jake has magically turned into GUAPO. What's going on, GUAPO?
Peace out, Jake. It's the GUAPO show now.
I'm going to start off this video, actually, with the way the Jake video finished off, and it's talking about... Before we talk about AEW, talking about my channel for just a second, for anybody that's new, for anybody that doesn't know, and all that type of thing. Tail end of 2019, beginning of 2020, big drastic shift in the way the channel goes. Like, we did I used to do the stuff with Connor. Connor went off on his own, wildly off in his own direction there. Basically, you and Kristen came in and joined the channel, and it was the three of us, and it was awesome, and we were doing the previews and all that kind of thing. And then we all sort of decided that mainstream WWE sucks dick.
Yeah, basically.
So you and I previewed All In, and you told me what was going to happen there, because I didn't know. I managed to wrangle Jake in, finally got him on with something that you and I touched on quite a bit, which is why Sasha Banks is a hypocritical cunt, and then eventually roped him into being my NXT guy, seeing as you were my AEW guy, roped Kristen into staying on the channel by talking movie stuff, and sort of discussing why Alien 3 is basically Shawshank Redemption, and...
Yes, it is.
Long story short, I'm not a very mushy dude, but I am a very lucky dude. So before we get into the AEW stuff, I want to take the opportunity to thank you for the role that you play on this channel, for being the AEW guy that fills in all the gaps that I don't know, because I don't watch, like, Being the Elite or whatever the case may be. Senor GUAPO, the AEW guy of the Spaz Phoenix podcast family. Much appreciated, bud.
Thank you. Thank you, Spaz, for giving me the platform to speak and have fun and talk about this wonderful thing we call wrestling, and give a light about something that we have fun and enjoy to a certain point.
And
until you watch Nia Jax in a match,
and to get into what we enjoy, as I just finished talking about with Jake. My God, did we need something to enjoy this year?
Yes, we did. Thank goodness wrestling didn't end.
Well, it sort of crawled along for a bit. Gotta say, COVID weirdness, Obviously, crowds disappeared. Obviously, everybody sort of stayed cemented where they were. Everything else kind of died. Like, movies died. Obviously, Kristen and I started doing a movie series at a time where all of a sudden we couldn't go to theaters anymore because we're brilliant. But, like, TV shows died. Other sports went away for people that watch other sports, which doesn't include me. Being able to go anywhere died. And we were watching empty gyms with people wrestling, and it was really awkward because you heard all the grunts and all the groans. And I'll sort of start it off where I left it off with Jake. So this is sort of going to be, for people that are like an hour and a half into the podcast at this point, there's going to be a little bit of repetition here, but I'm basically going to say how COVID started for me. We got that empty arena Friday Night SmackDown. And it was weird, but it was new. It was a one-off thing. It's like, oh, isn't this kooky and different? Then Raw was basically the same. And I think me and Jake, and I think you and I talked about this at some point too, it got to Wednesday, and that was sort of like the make or break night. Because whether you're on the NXT side, whether you're on the AEW side, like, the good wrestling happens on Wednesday. So when Wednesday came around, that was when it was, like, real for wrestling fans. I said both AEW and NXT are the ones that sort of got to stay in their own place, because Full Sail was still open to NXT at the time. It stayed in Full Sail, so it felt kind of normal still, whereas Raw and SmackDown went to the PC, which meant from being a big show to being a little show, NXT kind of felt the same size. But on the AEW side of things, we had seen them in Daly's Place before, and Daly's Place kind of, for better or for worse, became their performance center.
Yes, I mean, when
awesome
you don't
facility,
have,
obviously.
When you don't have rent to pay, and you can use the facility.
Yeah,
it's not a no-brainer. So, before we really get into anything, Spaz, I just want to give my condolences and also my heartfelt sorrow of the passing of Mr. Brody Lee, John Huber. I'm not sure if you had touched on it before with Jake or not.
I didn't really touch on it with Jake because I figured more appropriate to do it during the AEW conversation. I mean, we're going to talk about the highlights and lowlights. Yeah, obviously, that's in my lowlights. I mean, damn, right?
Yeah, definitely a hard hit for the AEW, WWE, just wrestling community family, because definitely taken way too soon. But definitely condolences to his family and to all the wrestlers that this affected as well, because I don't know about you, but I don't think I've seen one wrestler tweet anything other than just love and respect and just prayers for his family, because definitely lost a really good person.
It's weird though, right? Like, as much as I think it deserves attention, I do want to keep it sort of brief, because there's no right thing to say when somebody passes away, and you don't want to see anybody pass away, whether they were liked or not. Like, that becomes a weird type of conversation, but it really does seem like, to everybody you talk to, like, there was way more given, like, behind the scenes and, to up-and-coming talent and people that were just making their way. And, what's his name? The little funny short guy in the Dark Order that everybody likes.
John Silver.
John Silver put up a big thing about how he wasn't able to get gear, but he was really excited to have him in the Dark Order, so he got him the gear and he got him the ring jacket, and they were about to do something for being the Elite, and you hear stories like that. If you want to be like an entirely destroyed person for a couple minutes, go on Instagram and read the post that Bray Wyatt did about him on his personal, like on his Wyndham Rotunda Instagram. It's like, I don't want to say a page, like whatever you can fit on a screen. It's like 2 screens worth of stuff, and it's just like, god damn. Was nice to see Monday Night Raw. WWE did some stuff. I mean, it is unfortunate that they have to be considerate with what they do, because he was in AEW So they had to figure like AEW was going to like take the ball and run with it, which they are this Wednesday with the tribute show and all that sort of thing. But to see everybody doing it's Monday, you know what that means, like the Twitter thing.
Yeah.
One of them was Xavier Woods, one of them was somebody else doing the big Brody discus lariat and all the yeah, and like rather than put a blatant like, okay, we know that WWE is really good at video packages and whatever, but like it was almost better to see like people just out there doing their thing. Even Drew McIntyre, like he's their current champion. He started off the show with "It's Monday, you know what that means."
Right.
I mean, obviously they're doing the tribute show. Like they're we're recording this on Tuesday, by the way, guys. This is probably going out Thursday, but cards on the table, like they always are. Recording this on Tuesday, so this is before the Brody Lee celebration thing. The fact that they let his kid book a tag team for the main event is really cool. So I'm sure that'll be great. Rumor is and both NXT and SmackDown are cooking up something in recognition as well, which is, I mean, people look upon NXT and SmackDown as better than Raw anyway. So if you're going to do something like of substance, do it on a show that people are more invested in. I hate to put logic into it like that, but I mean, people don't look very highly on Raw. Like they look higher on SmackDown, they look higher on NXT, and I mean,
being the first show that was going to be on air since his passing,
yeah,
it was definitely we knew they had to acknowledge it, but
yeah, I mean obviously there's
and everything, which is good. I'm happy WWE did it all together.
Apparently, there was a lot of conversation about him on the Raw Talk thing. I haven't seen it, but apparently it's all very positive. There's a big part of me that, like, I don't know, because his introduction was in the Wyatt family, there's a part of me that thinks that it's almost more appropriate if they do a larger tribute during NXT, because like NXT is where the Wyatt family first came together. I feel like that would almost be more appropriate. But if they do it on SmackDown for the more mainstream audience, like that's just as good. Obviously, people are going to come out of the woodwork because they're speaking from emotion and they're they shouldn't have done that. They should have let AEW do it, or they should, or the other way, like they should have done more. They didn't do enough. But like normally, like the nitpickers on the internet, I'm like, fuck off, let them do their thing. But like something like this, I'd like to think that everybody's like speaking from a point of emotion. So it's sort of like everybody's going to have their thoughts. Let them have their thoughts and let it roll off. Enjoy the tributes. Go back and look at matches. I know a lot of people were saying go back and look at what's it called, the Wyatt family versus the Shield and bigger moments like that. When he picked up the IC title for a hot minute, and he picked up the TNT title for a hot minute.
If I can give a good match to go watch, watch the Wyatt family versus Cena, Biggie, and who was it? I can't remember who the third person was. It's the Raw right after WrestleMania 30.
Okay.
That's one of the most fun matches you could watch.
Is it Ziggler?
It might have been Ziggler, maybe. I'm not sure.
I'm thinking back then Big E came in as Ziggler's guy.
This was after that though,
okay.
So I can't remember exactly who it was. I'm gonna have to look it up now. But Mania right after 30, or Raw right after Mania 30.
I know there's some people online saying that, and it wasn't in WWE, but saying he had a great like series of matches with Cesaro. So if anybody wants to throw it down in the box below and tell me where we can find that, I would love to see that. Yeah. I know Josh Alexander, who's the current champion at Destiny Wrestling up here in Canada. Yes, check it off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list. He put out a post about him and just absolutely glowing, radiant things to say about him, and obviously everybody's sharing that WWE interview a while ago about like how he saved all of his stuff so he could give it to his kid, and it sucks, man.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks when anybody dies. Like, I hate to be general, but, like, just when you hear, like, okay, this guy passed away and it was bad, and it sounds like he was one of the good ones. Like, I mean, you don't want to compare any two, but people are drawing a lot of comparisons between him and Shad Gaspard, and obviously Shad Gaspard, that was fucking terrible, too.
Right.
But just as far as, like, everybody's emphasizing on what, like, a family guy he was, and that's where the Shad Gaspard comparison comes from, but it's fucking terrible. Like, there's no nice way to dress up. It's fucking terrible. Like, 2020 can suck a bag of dicks.
Let me take you on a ride of my...
Sorry.
I'm leaving that in.
I'm trying to get the dang thing to play.
You were watching porn. It's fine.
It's Alexa Bliss, so you know.
I want to make a comment about her being really
Raw
wet
from
Raw.
April 7th, Raw 2014.
Alright, fair enough. Cool. But yeah, awkward transition.
John Cena's Sheamus and Big E versus Wyatt family.
That's a weird combination.
I know, but it's the Raw after Mania. You just gotta get with it. But anyway, yes.
It's whoever they could find in the back versus whatever faction they're pushing at the moment.
Yeah, it was Wyatt family versus them. It worked.
Sounds like WWE booking.
If I remember right, the heels went over.
Nice. Well, so the team that's a team won.
Correct.
Nice.
As it should be. But yes, condolences, rest in peace, and definitely will be missed.
Yeah, and it is like, I hate to make the transition from like somebody actually passing away like back into like the wrestling talk, but it's very much, and I'm sure at some point Kristen and I will tackle it in the movie realm, but it's very much like Chadwick Boseman in the sense of, you don't want to talk about after, but you do. Like, there is a question that hangs in the air that nobody asks. Like, Chadwick Boseman passed away. Okay, now, what do we do with Black Panther? Brody Lee passes away. You don't want to just skip by it, but what do you do with the Dark Order? What do you do with all the stuff that they're involved in? Do you make a new leader? Like, is there no leader?
And that's something, too. Like, I've noticed a lot on, like, the different Facebook groups and stuff like that, people saying that maybe Matt Hardy should be the new Exalted One, different stuff like that. Like, it's too soon.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But like,
I would say maybe at least give it a month or so, or some point next year. Maybe if you are going to do that, I don't think they're going to disband the Dark Order. The Dark Order was a thing before Brody was there.
Yeah.
As the Exalted One, I believe they can be something without him there. Without him.
Yeah,
there.
I was gonna say the difference between like I use Chadwick Boseman as the comparison because we've like 2020 is a shit show. We've lost a lot of people this year, and it's fucking terrible. But the difference being, like, Chadwick Boseman would have been working towards a movie that we're gonna see like the end of next year, whereas. As much as I hate to say it, wrestling is a week-to-week thing where the rest of the people in that group need to go back to TV next week and know what they're doing.
Correct.
So it's rough. Like, I don't know, there's no right answer. But somebody eventually in some creative meeting somewhere has to be like, okay, we got a bunch of really talented guys here. What are we going to do with them? And that's not a question that and I'm not asking you for an answer, and I don't have an answer, but unfortunately somebody has to answer that question at some point.
Correct.
Which is terrible. The one example that, just because of, and I'm going to switch it back to the wrestling conversation because I don't have anything else to say about the Brody Lee thing other than it just sucks and it's horrible.
Yeah.
And I can only say that so many times before it gets repetitive and sounds disingenuous, and I don't want to do that. So moving on.
Yeah.
One big example, or one big advantage, I will say, that AEW has had over NXT in the Wednesday Night War. It's not a war, whatever. The venue they had versus the venue that NXT initially had. I like that NXT stayed in Full Sail because it still felt like it was the one show that didn't change.
Yeah.
But Full Sail University, like soundstage versus Daly's Place.
Oh yeah.
Versus almost the immediate ability to have even a fake crowd and then eventually real crowd. They hopped on that a lot faster than WWE did because they had the facility and the ability to do so, and nobody can say that it didn't affect the quality of the show.
Absolutely. And even if you think about it, at the very beginning stages of everything, whenever Florida was going through their lockdown process, they immediately switched gears and hauled butt up to Atlanta and filmed. Well, I think it was like 5-6 weeks worth of TV.
Oh yeah, they did it in that weird little place. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Did we ever find out where that was?
It's somewhere in I want to say Marietta, Georgia, or something like that. Like it's right outside Atlanta.
Because it almost feels like they were like hidden away, like the way the show was so small.
Where it is, it's QT Marshall's like wrestling gym.
Really?
Yes.
See, and isn't that weird? I totally forgot that was even a thing.
Yep.
I mean, like, there's going to be more that you're going to remember than me. Like, cards on the table, like we always are. I watch NXT. I write down my notes for NXT. I record my review for NXT. While I'm editing it, I've got AEW on in the background. It is the secondary focus for me. I know it's the opposite for you. But I had completely forgotten that thing that had happened. In my mind, like, the world shut down and they like hauled ass to Daly's Place.
Yeah.
But it is weird because only because like you picture wrestling as being sort of a surround thing, like the wrestling happens in the center and the fans are all the way around. Daly's Place, when it was full before the COVID thing or whatever, I always remember thinking of it as being like a really, really strange place to do it because it felt like there was only a crowd on one side.
Right.
Doesn't hurt it when all the wrestlers are able to stand completely around the ring and the fans that are there are so far away that you don't notice the difference. Correct. Now, when everybody does get back, I'm not going to care. As soon as we're able to have a full building again, I'm not going to care what the shape of the building is. But that's going to be noticeable again, and I hope they get to circulate more. But from an atmosphere point of view, I will say that they had the ability to do it better than WWE, but they definitely created at least the fake view or the fake impression of an atmosphere way quicker than WWE was able to. So I got to give them shout outs for that. I want to start with the lowlights so we can end on a high note.
Okay.
If I said to you, in all honesty, like, I know there's a lot of shit that NXT has to work on. I just finished going through it with Jake. If I said to you, and I'm not going to take the obvious dig of the women's division because I think something's actually happening there. And yes, I already mentioned the tag division in NXT, so you don't have to even bother.
That's okay.
But from your point of view, like, what do you want to see improved, or what do you think was like a major miss or whatever this year?
Honestly, the major miss this year has been the women's division, but it is improving, and I definitely see the light at the end of the tunnel that they're definitely going to improve it, as well as make it a bigger and more prominent thing. For AEW, I don't know. I'd guess to say it's definitely not the tag division, because the tag division has probably been the highlight of the entire programming with AEW this year. The main card with the heavyweight title, Moxley held the title for almost the entire year. I wouldn't call it a miss, just simply because it's hard to judge with this entire year, but the main stories and everything like that AEW has been giving us has been pretty good. Some tweaks, I believe, they could have done at the earlier stages of the year. This new Kenny and everything like that definitely has rejuvenated and made that title seem more important, even though it's the main title. It should be the most important thing on the show. But with John being at a limited schedule that he has had this year, definitely didn't feel like it was the most important thing on the show. But now with Kenny doing his belt collector thing, definitely going to be the most important thing, as well as just making that title feel like the most important title in wrestling.
I would say I didn't notice Moxley being gone as much. I will still say that I think he had a pretty great run. The downside,
he did have a good run.
The downside of that, to me, is something that's not AEW's fault. I know that there are people that liked Jon Moxley before Jon Moxley came to WWE.
Of course, I love John. I love John before WWE. I watched him in CZW.
Right, but my point being is, and it's the same with, I think they did a lot of debuts of a lot of people that we're really waiting to see that didn't get received properly, only because they didn't have an audience, which is completely out of AEW's control.
You know what? I know what the biggest miss this year was for AEW. The women's tag team tournament that they did.
Oh my god.
I
will agree with you there, and I am going to put you on.
They delegated it only onto Dark. They'd never had it on the main programming.
I'm going to touch on that in just a second. My only point a minute ago was that people waited for so long to see the proper Jon Moxley that to some of them they think they didn't get to see in WWE. I'm not that harsh on it. I think there were times where Dean Ambrose was great in WWE, and then they went goofy, and then he always managed to bring it back around. So I think he came in like ebbs and flows in WWE. I don't think it was a complete wash the way a lot of anti-WWE people will say it was. But from the outside point of view of, hey, I knew this guy before he was in WWE, I want to see that guy again. The fact that his entire title run from pickup to drop happened with almost no crowd is a down. If I want to use Simon Miller terminology, it is a down. But that's not anything that's in their control. I will say, for you mentioning the women's tag tournament, my issue wasn't that it was on Dark. My issues, and I mean you do have a valid point, but it's not what sticks out to me. What sticks out to me about that is shoving Brandy Rhodes in there because there's a little bit of Stephanie McMahon happening there, and also the fact that why were you? I know it's not a title per se, but they were given awards. It was like a title that was won. You went ahead and created, in the first year of your company, you created a second belt for or a second acknowledgement, I guess would be a better term, a second thing for the division to strive for, which is in lieu of a second title in your weakest division when the division itself was struggling on its feet. And I think that's one of those, and I will say AEW is very good. Like, they're very interactive with their fans. They pay attention. Obviously, there's a lot of interactive type stuff. That was one example, like creating a second women's title in a women's division that didn't even really feel like it had a first title was an example of them really not sort of reading the room, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't mind women's tag team wrestling. I would say just let them wrestle. Just let them have tag team matches, but don't say this is going to be a whole new big official thing, because you need to have a women's division before you can have a women's tag team division. And I think
I agree with you,
because it made a lot of people think, and I don't think they thought this, but it made people think, our women's division's good enough, let's go do something else. when a lot of people that were really wanting them to have a good women's division were really behind characters like Riho, like Britt Baker, like, I mean, Awesome Kong was there for a hot second, Hikaru Shida, who I still like now, who were behind these women and wanted the division to be great. They were unhappy with the whole, like, oh, well, this division's good enough, now let's go do something else with it. And they're saying, well, no, this division isn't where we would like it to be yet. And it's where you started getting the one switch that kind of went the other way, whereas everybody that got released from, you know, Impact, or anybody that got released from Raw or from NXT or whatever, oh my God, don't worry, AEW is going to save them. The only conversation they had about, like, who needs to be saved from AEW was the women's division. And I'm not going to lie, I sat there and I said, you know what, I'd love to see Britt Baker show up on NXT. I'd love to see Abaddon on NXT. It'd be fucking great. Bring in Abaddon from AEW, bring in Su Yung from Impact, and have them fight in NXT. Fucking right. But it was the only lacking thing that made that conversation go the other way. Which is still a shot in AEW's arm, because everything else, conversation-wise, went to them. I don't even remember, was it who won that?
Honestly, don't remember. I want to say it was Ivelisse and
yeah. Oh, Ivelisse and
Diamante.
Yeah.
Diamante. That's it.
And they got like comedy oversized medals that lasted like 2 weeks, and then we didn't. Like, it was their version of King of the Ring.
Right.
And they didn't even have like awesome Baron Corbin with crowns and shit. I don't have much overall to say negative, like overall, like, oh my God, they need to fix this. A lot of the stuff that I would say didn't hit for me was purely by like taste, and it was like individual things that didn't hit. Like Jake and I were talking about, like, this has been the year, because of COVID, because of lockdown, because of like empty arenas and whatever. It's been the year of cinematic style matches. Now, I know there's reasons why, and I know there's behind the scenes reasons why and all that, but the tooth and nail match was fucking terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It was. And while I know I'm in the minority in this, the what was it, the Jericho and Orange Cassidy, the orange juice match.
The Mimosa Mayhem match?
It
was good. You liked it, didn't you?
No, I'm gonna try and be kind, because I can see where they were going with it. I'm not gonna lie, it didn't hit for me.
It didn't hit 100%, but it wasn't as worse as some things that we saw this year.
Right. And I was gonna say, like, when it breaks down into, and the example I always use is me, like, having an unabashed love for Shotzi Blackheart.
Right.
Like, Shotzi Blackheart is one of those things that type of gimmick, that sort of, like, outside the box, sort of, like, quirky type gimmick isn't going to work for everybody.
Right.
But it works for me. It's right in my fucking wheelhouse. She's like my modern day Jeff Hardy as far as my fandom goes. I'm like, oh yeah, there's 100% like shit that doesn't make sense about that, but I don't care. My reverse of that was when I talked about Cameron Grimes. Because Cameron Grimes doesn't hit for me, but I can see why it works for other people, and I'm happy that somebody else is enjoying it. The Mimosa Mayhem match was very much the same thing. Like, I get what they're trying to do, and I see Jericho just giving himself to it, like, doing his best to put absolutely everybody over, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate the following that Orange Cassidy has, and I wanted it to...
In that whole arc of storytelling and everything with him, Jericho versus Cassidy, was 100% Jericho's booking.
Oh yeah, and see, the other thing is that there is a little bit of disappointment in that for me as well, because the whole story they had going, and where they had the debates, and then Orange Cassidy finally talked and showed that he was a smart guy when they did like the mock debate thing. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other thing. Like, AEW leaned super hard on like the election jokes, and like I could have done without that, but that's not their fault. But the whole thing where he's like hardly saying anything, and then he like totally owns him in the debate. I thought all that was great. So for this final match not to hit, for me, was a little bit extra of a bummer because I enjoyed everything leading up into it.
Right.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that really, really bad Matt Hardy spot off the scissor lift. And I know they've made changes since. I know they've changed their medical protocols and whatever, and that's awesome. But you still had a guy fall off a scissor lift to the concrete and continued the match. And I'm not going to totally grill them on it because it seems like he's okay. It seems like they're taking his character in a different direction. It seems like they've sort of said, holy shit, that was bad, we need to do it differently. But I don't know. It's one of those things that doesn't really go by me.
I mean, it was an accident.
It was. Oh, nobody did it. Nobody intentionally did anything. I'm not.
No.
Please understand. I'm not saying that.
It was an unfortunate of what happened. Very thankfully, Matt Hardy is fine today. Could have went the complete wrong way with that.
Could have went so much worse.
Could have went way worse.
I mean, Tony Khan would have Rebby to deal with at that point.
He had Rebby to deal with regardless.
Would you fuck with Rebby?
No, absolutely not. No. I could have Tony Khan's money and I wouldn't. Just no.
just hire, who's that big chick that came in to announce Shaq? Just stand behind her. I do want to say, like,
Jade
Cargill. I will say I'm happy for the Sting return. I could do without, like, hey, here's Tyson for some reason, and I could do without, like, little tiny, like, pregnant Brandy Rose throwing a drink in Shaq's face while he's made to sit in a chair that is comically too small for him.
Every chair is comically too small for Shaq.
It's true, but they gave him a super small chair, and it was just so that she could, like, mouth off to him and throw a drink in his face, and I
don't know why they gotta treat the doctor of what you call it, Dr. Love Shaq wrong like that.
See, I will say, like, they haven't.
Side note, you know Shaq actually has a doctorate, right?
Does he?
Yes.
In what? Is it basic Shaqonomics?
Basically, something like that. I can't remember what it was. Funny enough story. He actually finished his degree at LSU over here by me.
Nice.
Where he went to college before he got drafted to the NBA. But yeah, anyway. Yes.
The only reason I would nail down because I would just be like, okay, they brought in Tyson and that didn't quite work, and they've brought in Shaq and that didn't quite work so far, and I would let it roll. The only thing that keeps me from letting it roll is having direct comparison, and the celebrity involvement or the, other athlete involvement on the NXT side was Pat McAfee, who did phenomenal in the 2 matches that he was in for an outsider guy.
I'll say this about Pat McAfee. He is one of the best promos you can actually listen to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He talks so much shit for a person that's not in the wrestling world.
It's a great day to be great. It must suck to suck.
God.
No, but, like, even still, like, yes, for his very first match, they put him in a really, really capable set of hands in Adam Cole, right? Yeah. But even still, like, nobody expected that. And, I mean, you get to dress it up a lot more. There's a lot more smoke and mirrors in a War Games match. But the non-wrestler is the guy that did the swanton off the top of the cage.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's not a case of like, all because of this, all of a sudden Tyson and Shaq suck. It's just like in this one instance of like celebrity other athlete involvement, there's a direct comparison, and Pat McAfee did some stuff, and Shaq and Tyson didn't do anything. The last thing that I have, unless you have any other like low points that you want to talk about.
Excuse me. No, I mean, not that I can think of automatically off the top of my head. No real low points besides the fact that the Jurassic Express hasn't been able to, get any tag team gold yet, but it's fine. That'll come soon enough.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, like with the current global situation,
Yes, with the global bastard.
yeah, if somebody's not on TV, we never really want to speculate as to why they're not on TV. So like with as far as people's just like comings and goings, like, oh my God, we haven't seen so and so in a while, then I'm gonna just hope that it's not for a super bad reason, rather than yelling at them for like, oh my God, why didn't you book this person that I like?
Yeah.
So as far as who's there and not there, like everybody gets a pass for me right now. Like if somebody that I want to see on Raw isn't on Raw, then okay, I hope they don't have COVID. Like, it's not I'm automatically going to assume, oh, Vince must hate them this week, or Tony must not like, whoever, right? With the way the health situation is in the world, any minute now, any company, any brand, any show could have a revolving door of who's there and not there. So
Of course.
you just wanna hope that if they're there, it's maybe because they took a couple weeks off and they just decided, we all got stresses and whatnot. If you need to take a day, leave a day, whatever. Hopefully they're getting that. I'm assuming in AEW they are, because apparently there's a lot of flex there.
Right.
The last thing I want to say, and it's going to be a little bit more controversial, because I know a lot of people see it as a good thing. I see a problem wrapped up in an awesome thing. And that is the whole idea of managers in AEW. Because managers are a thing that can be done really well, really badly. AEW does the managers thing really well.
Mm-hmm.
My issue with it, or what I see could be an issue if it stays constant, is they do managers really well. So even though it's definitely not true, it feels like everybody has a manager.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Jake the Snake is managing somebody. Tully Blanchard is managing somebody. Taz is managing somebody. Arn Anderson is managing somebody. Sting is going to be in some sort of like external, rumored to be in some sort of like in Darby Allin's corner type role. There could be, the odd valet here and there as well. The problem I have with it, and like, this is why I'm saying, like, it's a problem that comes out of a good thing, is a manager adds to an act. And a guy coming out with a really strong mouthpiece, like a Paul Heyman for Brock Lesnar, is always the prime example. He's unique, because that relationship between those two people makes the act unique. But if they're presenting a show where it seems like everybody has a manager, then having a manager isn't a unique thing anymore. So I think they run the risk of watering down this great thing that they've created. And I think for the moment, they're keeping that balancing act okay. But I think at the same time, that could teeter over at any given point. So it's not terrible, but it's that I see the possibility of that going and leaning in the wrong direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think the managers that they do have right now, though, are being utilized in a correct manner. Team Taz is probably one of the best things that they have going right now for
Team Taz is literally in my high points. We're gonna get to.
Yeah.
This is the thing. None of them are being used, and this is why I wanted to be really clear about how I was saying this. None of them are being used badly. Tully Blanchard with the Revival is a match made in heaven. Arn Anderson with Cody is the most logical thing ever. Team Taz, like Taz building himself this team of badasses that are sort of in his image, makes total sense. Jake the Snake Roberts being behind Lance Archer is a little bit more of an odd couple, but it still works. You get somebody like Kip Sabian that has Penelope Ford in his corner, obviously for obvious reasons, because they're playing a couple and whatever. There's not a single one of these situations that's being managed badly. They're all being done great, but they're all there. So This is the thing. Like, if one of them was being done badly and it made all the other situations look bad, then it would be a different scenario. So this is why I want to make sure that I don't sound like I'm shitting on them. It's just the fact that there are so many that's going to water down the idea, which is unfortunate when they're doing it so well.
Right, of course.
But anyways, that's me. That's as much shit as they're going to get from me. Because I'm going on to high points now.
All right, high points.
John Moxley.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna say John Moxley. Jericho was the good first champion. Obviously, big, huge, gigantic name that's known all over the world. Everybody who likes wrestling knows who Chris Jericho is. It's possible that there's wrestling fans out there that don't know who Dean Ambrose, John Moxley is, but not very. So to go from one to the other was a perfect transition. And I mean, you go from WWE guy to one of the guys that runs the company. But that's okay. That's okay. We don't need to talk about that. It's fine. No, in all seriousness, I'm taking the piss a little bit.
and if you think about this, yes, Kenny is a EVP. However, Kenny didn't get the championship inaugurally. It's the right time for him to have it, as well as it was the right time to put a non-WWE guy with the title.
Yep.
Because you can't count his time in what's called FCW, because that don't count.
Sure it does.
No,
sure.
it don't.
Christopher Daniels worked for WWE.
Yeah, that doesn't even count either. He was there for a cup of coffee. He didn't even wrestle.
Robert Roode was Triple H's security guard.
Oh, God. He doesn't even count either.
CM Punk was one of John Cena's gangsters.
Yes, this is all true.
Yes, it is. Oh, right. Christopher Daniels was supposed to be the higher power.
Yeah, he was originally supposed to be the higher power, and he went there for a cup of coffee, did a couple shoots, and then they said, yeah, you can go home.
You're short, pal. And you're bald. No way a bald guy's gonna make it in this company.
Oh, Lord.
Anyways.
Let's see. What other highlights? Sting! I mean, Sting, I think, is a high point. Yes, it just happened, but when you bring a major player in like Sting, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Especially on an episode of Game of Thrones.
Yes.
I'm taking the piss. I like Sting. I'm glad he's there.
Oh, good. Sorry, I was sneezing. I swear I don't got the Rona.
I don't believe you, but it's okay. You're down there and I'm up here.
It's fine.
That's what she
said. It travels north. All right.
Well, they have to keep the vaccines at -80, so they had to send it up here where it's cold. That was really shitty, and I'm tired.
Like you said, Team Taz.
Team Taz is fucking great.
The absolute Ricky Starks, Taz's son, Brian Hobbs, or whatever.
Powerhouse Hobbs.
Powerhouse Hobbs. Don't know why they changed his name, but all right.
Because I mean, Will, like Powerhouse is like okay. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna have Ricky, Cage, and Will. Ricky, Cage, and Powerhouse. It's fine.
Yeah.
I just like, man, like there's such a like you can say the same thing about Eddie Kingston. You can say the same thing about Pat McAfee. I will say it about Taz. I'm biased because I used to like him in WWE. I used to like him on commentary. I used to listen to his like daily show when it was on CBC Radio. Like the guy's one of the best talkers there is.
Absolutely.
Like there's such a such a legitimateness to the way he talks, and it's not like where WWE gets shit on for the scripting all the time. Or you say something and I say something and you say something and I say somebody's name and they come out because that's when the interruption happens. Taz coming out and says, no, just do me a favor and shut up. You're a little bitch. I'm really, really worried that we're gonna get like Taz versus Sting or something. like that, and it's going to be terrible, and I'm going to watch it anyway.
I don't think we'll get that.
It's going to be like Hogan and Sting in TNA.
Lord.
That was a thing that happened.
No, I know.
What kills me about that is that Ric Flair was on the outside as well.
God. Let's not talk about TNA.
Team Taz, I will say, going up in we were talking about the Brody Memorial thing that's happening tomorrow night. Team Taz taking on the oddball team of Cody Rhodes, Orange Cassidy, and number 10.
Yes.
The team that was put together by -1.
Hey, if that's what -1 wants, that's what -1's gonna get.
No, it's very cool.
I don't know if you also saw the
I haven't seen Being the Elite.
The report saw Dark, where I forget what match it was. Dark Order was fighting somebody. They went to the outside, and Taz acknowledged Brody's son, Brody Jr., and called him -1.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was great. It was nice. And also the report also said that after Dark was filmed and everything like that, Kenny came out and had a match with -1 where -1 actually pinned him.
Oh, that wasn't this week. That was a couple weeks ago.
Was that a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. Because initially, when it first came out, the reports were saying that they thought it was shot for like Being the Elite or something like that.
Yeah.
No, that happened before Brody died, but he wasn't able to be there because obviously he was dealing with whatever he was dealing with. But yeah, bringing it back on track, Team Taz is a lot of fun. It's kind of cool that Taz has used this to bring back like his championship. And the little twist that he's going to management and trying to get the FTW championship recognized as an official title. I'd like to see that become something. I'd like to see that become like, even if it becomes like the $1 million title. I'd like to see somebody not on Team Taz win the FTW title, because that has so much story driven. Story-driven possibility. Like if Darby Allin walks around as a 2-time champion because he beats Brian Cage for the FTW title, he's got the FTW and the TNT title. That's fine. Which transitions me into my next high point. Darby Allin, and not for the reason that you're going to think, but Darby Allin winning the TNT championship.
Amazing.
Absolutely amazing. And it's not, for once, I'm not here just taking a dig at Cody Rhodes. Darby Allin is a bigger celebration for me than Kenny Omega, only because, and how could I'm trying to explain this again without sounding like a dick. I did make my comment earlier, and it was a joke, even though it's kind of true, about like all the champions so far either being ex-WWE guys or the bosses. Darby Allin is neither of those things. So even though he's had, what do you want to call it? I'm sure he's done stuff elsewhere, and people have known him elsewhere. He's the first champion that feels like a true AEW product.
Yes.
And I hope people take that as the positive thing that I mean it as. I love his character. Obviously, it's the kind of character that I like. I'm the guy that liked Vampiro.
It's Jeff Hardy.
It's the Jeff Hardy. It's the Vampiro. It's the Kiss Demon. It's the Demon Finn Balor. It's the, it's Shotzi Blackheart, Nikki Cross. These are the types of characters that I like. People know me. You guys have been listening to me forever and ever and ever and a day now. It's fine. Please throw me some comments down in the comment section below. But my comment section is looking naked. And YouTube keeps telling me that I don't get comments. So I know you all love me. Tell me you love me down in the comment section. And then go over to @guapo_504 and tell Guapo that you love him. And go to Countdown Ended and tell Jake that you love him. And go to Black Cat Feline and shout into the abyss, because I don't think Kristen answers her Twitter. That was quite a diversion. Anyways, Darby Allin TNT Championship finally comes right round the house and wins over Cody Rhodes. Yes. Though I will say that in the opening to Dynamite, when they show Kenny as champion, or they show, what's her name? Sheeta as champion, or the tag team champions, they still show Cody Rhodes holding up Darby Allin's hand with the TNT belt. So he's still there. It's fine.
He got to get the rub somehow, okay?
Hey, I think Darby Allin already gave him the rub. He gave him a couple wins already.
Yeah,
It's fine. But no, I like Darby Allin. I wish that Lio Rush was still in NXT so that I could wish AEW versus NXT you could have Darby Allin versus Lio Rush.
That would be a good match.
The guy's insanely talented. The guy is clearly insane. Obviously there's been a lot of hardcore matches in AEW, but I don't think there's anybody that like throws more of their body at the floor than Darby Allin does. The whole getting body slammed inside the body bag thing. It gives me pause. It gives me great pause.
It makes you think, "Ow, that really hurts."
Oh, when you put him in the bag with thumbtacks in the bag.
Yeah.
And he was doing the other stuff with what's his name, Havoc, before Havoc got let go.
Yeah.
Super kick with a mouthful of thumbtacks. No, thank you.
Mm.
Now that sort of transitions me into something that includes Darby Allin and includes Jurassic Express, which you've mentioned earlier. My top three talents to watch in AEW haven't really changed. Like, there's odd other side characters that I like, and I'm interested to see what they do and whatever. Top three, and I'm sorry, it doesn't include MJF. MJF is just under these three guys for me, which tells you how high I think of them. Top three guys in this company that are gonna make or break it, in my opinion, Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, and Jungle Boy.
I can definitely agree with. Excuse me. I can definitely agree with you on there.
And what's awesome is they don't have to be in top spots to be the best part of the show. And that's important. I just finished talking with Jake on NXT, and here's my comparison once again. My comparison is Shotzi Blackheart, not only because she did a coffin drop off the plexi a couple of weeks ago, which is fine. I think it's really, really awesome that while she's not being put in a main event slot, NXT are definitely giving her a focus. They've basically based two big events around her. One was Halloween Havoc, and one was War Games. And they're putting a fairly sizable spotlight on somebody who is still a mid-card talent, which is not something that usually happens, especially in WWE. Very, very similar for these three. They make Jungle Boy look like $1 million, Sammy Guevara look like $1 million, Darby Allin look like $1 million, while not being in the title picture for like the main title. And by proxy, through these three guys, you make your mid-card feel like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You give me a triple threat with these three guys every week, I'd be fine. This is AEW's version of Styles, Daniels, Joe.
The only thing I would say is that it would be a triple threat, make it a fatal four-way, and throw in Scorpio Sky. Because I see Sky being a major title holder in the near future.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he's going to get in there from his in-ring ability. But as far as, and not to say that he doesn't have personality either, to me, the personality from the three guys that I just mentioned, it is on a higher shelf. Now a lot of that is because of exposure. The three of them have had more exposure than Scorpio Sky has, and a lot of Scorpio Sky's exposure was within a tag team of three, so it's a lot harder. But at the same time, Sammy Guevara is in a group of 6. Yeah. Jungle Boy is in a group of 3. Darby Allin's solo by the nature of his character. I would agree with you, and I would say the only reason I keep MJF out of this particular thing and how it's, like I say, such a spotlight on the mid-card is because I think MJF is out of that, and he's like scratching the surface of like main event stuff. So for me to say, hey, look at these guys and look how great they're making the mid-card look, MJF doesn't do that because he's not at the top of the mid-card, he's at the middle of the main event. So it's a different. So take nothing away from MJF at all, because as a character he's great, in the ring he's great. But I think where he is a different conversation than where these three are right now. If I can go to a better comparison, back before they ruined the Intercontinental Championship, remember how WWE used to have, like, the Winged Eagle was, like, the main title. It was held by the Hulk Hogans and the Shawn Michaelses and whatever. And then you had the workhorses, like, the true workhorses that were holding the show together, had the Intercontinental Championship. That's these guys, to me.
Oh, absolutely. They're definitely the Intercontinental Champion caliber-esque of yesteryear type champions and type workhorses that are going to be the future champions of this program.
Yeah. And, like, the Hardys, Dudleys, Edge, and Christian elevated the tag team division by their constant three-way interactions and obviously the violent matches and stuff like that. I would love to see some combination of these three guys. Now that Darby has the TNT Championship, I would love to see these guys just, like, constantly three-way feud over that title and elevate that title in the process.
Oh, absolutely.
And again, I have to specify, that's not a dig at Cody, but Cody is a main event. Whether I like Cody or not, Cody's a main eventer.
Yeah.
You can't do the John Cena thing where, oh, look, I'm the main eventer with the mid-card title. Look at me bending down into the mid-card. Like, the people that are there should be doing that, and I think these three guys can.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, more highlights.
I'm just going to put it out there. The Stadium Stampede.
Good, because that's the next one I was going to mention. For all its ridiculousness, for all its silliness, for its...
Jericho with a cone on his head.
No, for Jericho doing the Judas effect to a mascot.
Yes, even better.
And what was it?
The bar fight between Hangman and Hager.
Was it Hangman that also went around with, like, the field painter and, like, painted over somebody's face?
Yes.
For the locomotion, what do you call them, suplexes from one side of the field to the other, which definitely was not from one side of the field.
Northern Lights suplexes from Matt Jackson to Sammy.
Which definitely did not go from one side of the field to the other.
Absolutely not.
Like, that would be a workout.
Editing.
Yay, editing. I will say...
The part where referee Aubrey Edwards went underneath the tent to watch the review for the penalty.
Nice.
I know you don't get that reference because you're Canadian and you don't watch the sports, but...
I know what a replay is.
Okay. Just
condescending cunt.
I didn't know they had those over there in Canada.
Yes, we just got TVs last year, so we caught up pretty quickly.
Really? Interesting.
It's fine. We don't get proper HBO Max, so I had to pay extra for Wonder Woman 2. It's fine.
I didn't know. I know y'all had those milk bags, but it's fine.
Ruffin's not even here. Why are you doing this?
It's tired in here. Yes, the Stadium Stampede.
See, no, I'm going to call you to task on that for a second. I know that not everybody has the milk bags. You guys having an absolute conniption when I showed you a picture of a snippet was insane.
I mean, just a pair of scissors. That's all you need. Just a
snippet. Snippet.
Why do you need it? Never mind.
Snippet.
We're getting off topic. This is a whole nother video.
Ketchup chips. Tim Hortons.
Plastic money.
Maple syrup.
Yum.
Do you have a do you have a credit card?
Yes.
Then you have plastic money too.
And not the same.
Fair.
I slide mine. You actually hand it to a person and they keep it. So, also,
I was just thinking how many different responses I could come up with to I slide mine. But, you know, I don't want Mrs. Guapo coming up here and kicking my ass. It's fine.
She might.
It's true. It's fair enough.
Never mind.
Watch this be the one.
Probably
Watch this be the one podcast she actually listens to, and we get in trouble.
Doubt it. Stadium Stampede, probably one of the best, if not the best, cinematic wrestling match we had this year.
I would say third. I would say definitely third.
Behind what?
Well, number one was the Firefly Funhouse, only because of like how much history was in that match with the whole John Cena thing, and just the fact that John Cena had to be willing to like basically slaughter all of his own career to make that work.
He's fine with it by now.
Oh, he would have had to be fine with it to do it. But I'm just saying, like, there was so much meaning and so much reward in that for people that really paid attention to it. Like, it was really smartly put together. Like, Stadium Stampede was a lot of fun, but there was a lot of long-term reward for all the criticisms that we've had of John Cena in that match. And, I mean, that's number one. Stadium Stampede is number three. Number two, it's One Final Beat.
Well, Last Ride?
Last Ride I'd put number 4. One Final Beat is number 2. Stadium Stampede's number 3. What's it called? Last Ride's number 4.
One Final Beat, which one's that?
One Final Beat was the hardcore cinematic empty arena match between Gargano and Ciampa.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Where we had both Garganos turn. When they did the thing with the cup and Candice tried to get in the middle to like stop it all, and then she turned on Ciampa too. A lot of people hated it. I really liked it because not as much as the Cena Wyatt match, but there was a lot of history and a lot of Easter eggs and a lot of payoff in it as well, and I thought it was really clever put together.
Right.
And I think it led to Johnny Gargano's faction that he has now, which is fucking awesome. But no, Stadium Stampede, really, really good. The one that didn't quite make it was the Tooth and Nail match. Yeah, the Tooth and Nail match. I mean, it sort of goes without saying, and we've already mentioned it a couple of times. The big highlight for AEW is the tag team division.
Oh, absolutely.
You and I are going to do the second half of our focus on the AEW tag team breakdown thing that we're doing. I got one more to do with you. I got one more to do with Jake for the NXT women's division. Those will be coming in January as well. I mean, the tag division is what it is.
Absolutely.
I'm not on board with every team they've got, but they've got a lot of teams.
Any particular tag team match that you remember from this year that stood out to you? Because I definitely have one.
Because of like recency bias and whatever, I know they basically just showed up, but anything I've seen so far from Top Flight.
Yeah, they're good.
The other ones the ones that are doing like discount John Cena shit?
The Acclaimed.
See, their Top Flight is good. Those guys are fun.
Yes.
And I kind of want them to feud with each other. I want them to do like an Edge Christian Hardy Boys thing where they both start at the bottom and they both elevate each other.
Let's be real. It's going to turn into Edge and Christian Hardy Boys and what was the third tag team? Shit.
Edge Christian Hardy Boys and Dudley Boys.
Dudley Boys.
So what's it going to be? It's going to be Acclaimed and Top Flight and Butcher and the Blade.
No, I was going to say Private Party.
See, Private Party, I don't think, like, maybe I'm giving them, maybe you're not giving them as much credit as me, which I don't think is true. I think they've already reached a certain level. I want to see only because they've put in Top Flight and Acclaimed at the same time, and they're both sort of, again, I have to say, I don't mean this in a bad way, but they're both on the ground floor in AEW. So I would love to see both two teams that are on the absolute floor go all the way up. With Private Party, they could be thrown in the mix later on down the line, but I don't think they're on the ground level by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Throw them in there with the ones from Dark Order.
Silver and
yes, Silver and Reynolds.
Reynolds, yeah.
They could be the Dudley Boys in that equation.
I'm fine with that. I mean, well, you know what their tag team on the Indies was together, huh?
Which is that?
The Beaver Boys.
Remember when WWE did Beaver Cleavage?
Yeah. No, just no. One tag team match that definitely stood out for me for this year was Best Friends versus Santana Ortiz.
Oh, the backlot brawl?
Backlot brawl, yeah.
Did Meltzer give that 5 stars? Like,
I'm
not even super big on the, oh my god, let me see what Meltzer said about this. But I was like, I liked that. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think they did a lot of creative stuff. But I wasn't blown away by it the way most people were blown away by it. Like, I can put all my bullshit aside about what I think of, like, the bosses of AEW and whatever. But I can't argue with Bucks versus Hangman and Omega.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I can't.
That match was amazing from start to finish.
But, like, there were people that came out of that street fight with, like, similar reactions. And I'm like,
right.
it was good, but I don't, like...
It was a great end of the story that they've been telling.
Like, it was a good, fun street fight. They did a lot of really dangerous-looking spots. It was really impressive. They were very good at what they did, but as far as, like... Even I will say, like, I've got my issues with the Bucks. I've got issues with Omega and Page, like, separately, like, character-wise and whatever. But, like, that was, like, almost like, no pun intended, it was a paradigm shift for tag team wrestling. Right? I did not get that from the Best Friends Santana Ortiz match, and it sounds like a lot of people did. And it's not to say that they're wrong. It's not to say that I'm right. Anytime I see somebody enjoy something that much, I'm like, I wish I could enjoy it as much as you seem to be enjoying it right now. What I will say, and I know this is like going against like the wrestling gods, but like the one match that everybody was looking forward to was Bucks versus Revival, or Bucks versus FTR as they are now, right? And that was supposed to be the be-all to end-all match for tag team wrestling, and I don't know. Like, it would have been the be-all to end-all for tag team wrestling if we hadn't had the one with Omega and Page earlier.
Right.
And I don't know. I think they shot themselves in the foot there a little bit. But I will say what I said before, and I don't know whether I said it in a video or in a pod with you, or whether I said it on one of my own videos. Now that Moxley has dropped the world title, and I don't think they're going to give him like an immediate rematch or something like that, I would love to see him and Kingston do a tag team run.
Yeah.
And it's not to say, oh, let's just throw together a tag team, but like obviously they've got history, obviously they've got a past relationship and whatever. And they could beat the shit out of each other, or they could go get some gold. And Kingston's family is kind of falling apart right now, so would you not go back to your old family? Because I'm not going to lie, as good as they are, I would love to see Moxley and Kingston beat the ever-loving shit out of the Young Bucks. I think that, like, no word of a lie. I would love to see that.
I think that would be a great tag team together.
Actually, for the pure match style of it, I would love to see those two versus the Revival as well.
Yeah. Just to see two people who brawl more than anything else versus two technical guys.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like the Revival can't brawl when they need to also.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know, man. As far as highs, like, as much as I have my issues with AEW, and as much as I see certain flaws that other people seem to be okay with, I do have to come back to the reality of this is a company that's been around a year and a bit, and to have done, and I mean, yes, they've got the backing, they've got Tony Khan, they've got the financial support, they've got the network and TV support to do it, but to do what they've done in a year and a bit is impressive.
Absolutely.
And I they've done some stuff that I don't agree with. They've done quite a bit that I don't agree with. You've heard about most of it. You've been on the other end of most of it. But you know what? They planted their flag and they started their company, and it's standing toe to toe with the big boys. And I don't know, from the other side of the line, because I'm still the NXT guy, long may it continue.
Absolutely. This rivalry, this quote-unquote Wednesday Night War will only be good for both brands.
Yeah, and what I have said about the Wednesday Night War, because everybody's like, oh, why doesn't NXT just give up and move? And my response to that is, well, first of all, technically NXT had Wednesday nights first, which is my petty answer. My realistic answer though is I don't want either show to move nights. I do want them to move time slots. And what I mean by that is I know you're in a slightly different time zone than me. For me, both NXT and AEW run from 8 to 10. I would love NXT to run 7 to 9 and actually be on a proper Canadian TV channel so I don't have to use a shitty American stream. It's fine. And then have AEW run from 9 to 11. Because Wednesday night, no matter... And I've said this at the beginning of the video, I'm saying it with you now, and I think you and I have said this multiple times already. No matter which side of the line you're on, whether you're on the AEW side, NXT side, whatever, Wednesday night is the best night for wrestling.
Absolutely.
Wednesday night has the majority of fans watching 4 hours of awesome wrestling. So just give us, like, have a one-time handshake across the aisle between Tony and Vince. Okay, you bump an hour this way, we bump an hour this way. Everybody can watch both. Everybody will get better ratings. Keep it all on Wednesdays. It's good. I can still do my NXT review and put it up online while I'm listening to AEW in the background. It's fine. But what it means is you don't have to choose between the show you're going to watch and the show you're going to have spoiled.
Yep.
But I don't agree that one show has to move nights for that to happen.
I agree with you on that.
Now,
what I honestly think will be the most beneficial, for at least WWE's standpoint, they need to be able to post NXT faster.
What do you mean?
Like repost on the network for on demand, because
okay.
For me at least, I have to wait like almost a week or like a day or two for them to repost it.
Well, does it not play on the night?
No. Well, it plays on the night, but they don't repost the replay until like the next day.
Oh, but like you could TiVo it if you wanted to.
Oh yeah, I can record it from my cable box.
Yeah, but this is exactly my point. Like everybody that watches both is TiVoing one of them and watching the other one. But you're also deciding, because of we live in the realm of social media and whatever, unless you want to turn yourself off completely. Like when I'm watching NXT, and this is, firstworldproblems.com, but like, I have Twitter open while I'm watching NXT, but I also throw in an NXT filter on NXT, so I'm only seeing NXT posts. I'm only responding to NXT posts and whatever. But I mean, people tag all their posts with hashtag AEW, hashtag NXT, because they want their posts to be seen. So that kind of fucks me in the ass. What I'm saying is, like, you shouldn't have to choose between, like, what you're going to watch and what you're going to have spoiled. Especially because they run such concurrent, like, hey, this is a big night for us, this is a big night for them. Like, if AEW is running Fyter Fest and NXT is running, I don't know, Halloween Havoc, that should be the best night of the month.
Yes.
But unless you're going to cut yourself off from the internet completely, that one of those is getting spoiled.
Absolutely.
Like, somebody messaged me about the Omega title change and the Sting debut while I was watching NXT. And it's nobody's fault, right? Like, it's really not. Like, it's the way of the internet. But I just think, like, the people that say one of the shows needs to move nights are too drastic. But you could bump time slots. You could do something where everybody could win just a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Because especially because WWE is the family-friendly thing. Like, I would obviously say put NXT earlier, like 7 to 9. AEW's got a little bit more of a variety, a little bit more. They're going for the demo and all that sort of thing. They're more likely to be up 9 to 11 anyway. So, literally everybody, even something as simple as which audience you're going for, it makes sense.
Right.
But I mean, if you're coming off of 2 hours of NXT and it's been a great show, why would you not want to carry that enthusiasm into the next show that's starting right now?
The only thing I see with that is burnout, because the casual viewer watching isn't going to sit there and watch 2 hours of NXT and then stay sitting for another 2 hours of AEW, just simply for the fact that nobody wants to sit there for 4 hours watching wrestling straight, unless you're watching WrestleMania.
That's more like 8 hours. Yeah, but
Exactly.
Those people that don't want to watch 4 hours of wrestling are just going to leave one show to the next day, and they can definitely still do that.
Right, of course.
So I don't think what I'm saying would necessarily inhibit those people that are going to do that, because those people that are going to leave it to the next day, then it doesn't really matter what time it's on at that point. Because then at that point you're deciding I'm going to watch it the next day. You're deciding that, okay, I'm okay with spoilers.
Yes.
Anyways, that's just my 2 cents on the thing. I think people that are saying one of them has to move nights are a bit extreme. I think there's some workarounds that can be done. I mean, Vince McMahon and Tony Khan are never going to shake hands anyways.
No.
So
I don't think either one needs to move nights. If one does, it would only be beneficial to both, really. But I don't think they will. Just because if you move, yeah, that's a chance of you're increasing your viewership of the night. Say, just for example, for whenever NXT did their Super Tuesdays.
yeah.
NXT pulled higher ratings that Tuesday than a Wednesday that they went up against AEW.
Oh yeah, and AEW is going to do the same.
Pulled higher numbers on that Wednesday than when they were going up against NXT.
Yeah.
The problem is, USA Network does not like the fact that they lost viewership on that Wednesday still.
Oh yeah, no, either show would have more viewers if there was nobody on the other side. That's just a thing that happens. But it's anybody on any show, and I haven't heard it from NXT fans, because NXT fans are a lot less vocal. There's less of us right now. I get it. It's fine. I've only heard it from the AEW side, but it's that whole, well, you're losing, why don't you just move?
Right.
You move. In the most real sense possible, we were here first.
All right. I mean, I can definitely agree with that. And I can definitely agree with it's mostly AEW fans that are calling for that. However, me being a fan of both, it's not a necessary evil to move.
No.
It's just I have to juggle watching both how I want to watch it. And I mean, I choose to watch AEW live and pre-record NXT or rewatch it the next day off of the network.
I will say, if you do record one and watch it later, you've got at least one show where you can fast forward through the commercials, which is awesome.
Exactly, which is definitely a thing. So.
Yeah. You know what? It's what I do. I mean, this is not related to anything, but I still watch Raw every Monday just because it's habit. Even if I'm doing other shit and I just have it on in the background, it's just they've got me. I'm part of the problem.
Yeah. I honestly could not tell you the last time I watched Raw.
You know what it is, man? It's just especially right now. What else am I doing? I'll be watching Raw and making notes for a pod like this. Right. I'm just so used to it being on in the background. But what I've taken to doing, because I do have the TiVo box where you can pause and whatever.
Right.
I've just gone and I'll pause it because it starts at 8 for me in this time zone, whatever. I'll pause it and I'll start it at like 8:45, and by that point I've gotten rid of all the commercial, so I can still watch it sort of live and with no commercials.
Right.
I mean, some of the commercials are better than some of the matches because Sasha Banks still exists, but that's another story for another day. That's one thing you and me and Jake all have in common. We've all come on this channel to talk about Sasha Banks being a useless cunt. Ayy! And on that high note, we're gonna wrap it up with what do you want from AEW in 2021?
What I want AEW in 2021. Besides live crowds and for me to be able to go to my show.
Like, what do you want from the show?
Honestly, the only thing I really would like to see, because we do have such a great tag team division already, is to expand on that tag team division more and bring in a trios title.
Fair. My only caveat to that is if you're going to bring in a trios title, and I would say the same thing if WWE did it, the same way we don't like throwing together tag teams, if you bring in a trios title, don't just, grab this team and grab this guy, now they're a trio. Like,
Right.
Go out and get some actual trios.
Oh, no, absolutely.
The same way as I would say, like, I want to bring, spoiler for what I talked to Jake about earlier, I want to bring bring the WWE women's tag titles to NXT. Because there's one team there specifically with Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter who are an actual team. They're not just like, okay, I like Rhea Ripley, I like Shotzi Blackheart, let's give them the tag titles.
Right, exactly.
Like, Catanzaro and Carter are an actual team, whereas on the main roster they broke up the Iconics to put Peyton Royce with Lacey Evans for reasons.
Yeah.
So, I would say the same thing to AEW. Like, the same way you wouldn't want to throw them together tag team, I wouldn't want to throw them together trio. And I think there's a lot of those. Like, when you look at, Death Triangle. Right, which, okay, they're a faction, they have a name, whatever, but really, it's a tag team and another guy.
Yeah, but that other guy's Pac.
To say nothing about the talent, I'm just saying, like, they're gonna run into the same criticism that, like, WWE gets for throwing together tag teams. And I hope they don't have that, because the idea of a trios title, there's two titles that I've always wanted to see in mainstream wrestling. The trios title looks like it's going to happen. The other is a mixed tag title, which I don't think is ever going to happen.
No, that one I don't see happening. However, I could see possibly, if done right, a intercontinental title-esque for women's, to give women's a mid-card title to work for.
I would rather, like, and more so mainstream WWE, because I think NXT is okay with the titles that they have. I would rather that mainstream WWE had a main and a mid title than two main titles.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what we're talking about right now. What I want to see, and this does go for both sides of the war, so to speak, but I think it's just a little bit more overt and obvious with AEW. I'm just being honest. Like the shots. The shots over the line.
The shotsies?
No, the shots between companies.
Oh.
Just because, like, I'm not saying WWE and NXT are innocent by any stretch of the imagination, but some of the more overt things that, like, Cody breaking the throne type of shit, like, I know it gets the, ooh, look what he did reaction, but, like, as much as I could appreciate one here and there, it got tired. And when you had, I think the tipping point for me was when they brought in Miro, because I don't think Miro's introduction was handled very well at all. I didn't handle that in the lows, but there's an extra one. It was just the fact that I would not compare AEW to Impact, even at my lowest, like, opinions of AEW. But TNA went through that period of time where, like, everybody they could get from WWE they got, and they came into Impact, and the first thing they did was cut a promo about how shitty WWE is. And that's literally what they did with Miro. And you take that and you combine it with Like, okay, we brought in the Acclaimed, but we have to mention that, hey, somebody else did this over there at that other company, and then you do the throne breaking thing, and I get it. Like, I do get that it's a thing that they're doing, but it's exhausting for people that enjoy both. And
I think as it grows, that will end, because you can only take so many cheap shots.
Yeah, and I think they've run out. And
pretty much.
but I think there was a period where they had already run out and they were scraping. Now I don't want WWE to do it either. I don't want NXT to do it either. I just can't think of the last time they did it. It is my problem. It shouldn't be on. It's exhausting. And I don't want to say, well, come on, guys, be more mature, because I'm the last person that should say that. But it's old now. Is the point? The only other thing I will say, and it's going to tie back into the Darby Allin comment that I made, I do want in the next year or so to see a AEW champion who is like what I said before about Darby Allin, as a fully AEW product.
Yeah.
Guy to be the AEW champion. Kenny Omega.
So with that said, what out of the roster right now, who is your pick to be either TNT or a new AEW champion for next year?
I want to see, like I said before, I want to see a three-way battle for that TNT championship between Darby, Sammy, and Jungle Boy.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to see. What do I want to see? Even though I don't really like them, I want them to drop this. Oh my God, poor Cody, he can't go for the AEW title. I want him to go and get the title because he gets sick of Cody or Kenny Omega and all his Impact shit. I want Cody to pick up that belt. Surprisingly enough, I know, so that MJF can take it off him.
Okay.
Because I don't want MJF to take it off of Omega, because there's no story there. If he takes it off Cody, there's all kinds of story there, including the fact that he made it impossible for him to get it for this long. So if we come out of next year, right now, Kenny's a heel, Darby's a face. If we come out of next year, and we've got both heel champions, if we've got, say, or no, even if we keep it the way it is, if that title's on any of the three guys I mentioned for the TNT title, Darby, Sammy, Jungle Boy, and we come out next, like we ring in next New Year with MJF as champion, and maybe he has his first defense against Jericho and like just kicks him in the dick and like serves him a little bit of the bubbly, and that's like their New Year's episode. Yeah, MJF. And like I say, Darby, Sammy, Jungle Boy. Maybe throw Ricky Starks in the TNT mix if the trio that I've mentioned starts to get a bit stale. Maybe put Kingston back in the main world title mix. As I said, I don't think it's happening. I don't think there's any signs of it happening. Throwing Mox and Kingston into the tag team mix would be something cool. I just want somebody that breaks that, even if it's totally superficial, even if it's totally in my mind, that idea that the AEW champion so far is ex-WWE guy, boss. Now, to some people that doesn't matter, and I get that. Right. But I want a Darby Allin level achievement for that main title. Like I want the ultimate sign from the owners of the company that our guys can hold this title.
Yes.
Maybe we get a resurgence of Sean Spears. I don't know what the hell's going on with him right now.
Lord knows. Nothing really.
I think that's about it.
I would like to say Wardlow. I would love to see Wardlow in some sort of title picture.
If you want to change what the TNT title is, if you want to give it to the big beefy boys for a little bit, you could take it off of Darby, Sammy, Jungle Boy, and have them continue their feud without the belt, and have like all the big guys fight over it. You could have like the big monster mash type thing, Throw in Wardlow, throw in Luchasaurus, throw in Lance Archer, throw in Brian Cage and Powerhouse Hobbs, and just do some ridiculous Power Man shit.
Right.
And as impressive as that is, it's not in my wheelhouse as much as the smaller, more athletic guys, but I know there's an audience for that as well. So, I mean, hell, Big Show versus Mark Henry had an audience, right?
This is true.
How many of those guys, those big guys that I just mentioned, can you imagine if you got 6 of them in a match and 3 of them went up and did the superplex spot off the turnbuckle and it just completely implodes, like it doesn't just break, it like disintegrates?
I'd watch it.
Better not be a match going on afterwards, like
that
Cena and Del Rio fighting in the broken ring.
I mean, it could be worse.
Could be fighting on Charlotte Flair's old implants.
God.
Say what? I'm tired.
That's what we're ending on, really.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so a lot of things to look forward to 2021 with AEW, NXT, all that fun stuff.
Year's been a bit shit, but
you know what? We can only go forward. And with that being said, take us out, Spaz.
Well, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if there's one more person jumping on this or not. So I will say, tell them where to find you.
Oh yeah, find me on Twitter at GUAPO_504, or find me on my other non-wrestling programs at YouTube at Champions of the Parish. That's where me and one of my buddies, Dank Square, play some Magic of the Gathering. My other nerdiness that my wife hates, but you know what? It's fine.
Is your and Ruffin's show still a thing?
Yes, me and Ruffin still do a show. We have been on a bit of a hiatus. Both of us have been caught up with work and holidays and everything else. But if you want to check us out there, we are on Facebook, the Wednesday Night Wrestling Show. We try to do a live show every Thursday night.
Thursday Night Wrestling Show.
Where good old Fat Boy Colin tries to get us off get us off our hand with his milk bags and Tim Hortons, but it's fine. We
Snip it. Snip it.
It's fine.
Snip it.
Anyway.
Any of my fans, any of my listeners, I should say, that are based in Canada, I want you to go to @GUAPO_504 and just send Guapo pictures of snippets, because he doesn't get it.
No, I don't. We use scissors, and also it comes in either a carton and or a plastic jug.
Again, we're talking about Charlotte Flair?
I mean, yes, we are. And with
all right, brother.
Said, I'm gonna hand it off over to Kristen.
Maybe.
Maybe.
All right, brother. Take it easy.
All right. Catch you later.
All right, are you still with me? Because I know that was a lot of talking. That was 3 guys talking for a long time. If you're still with me, God bless you. And I do have to say, from the pretty sexy face and the gimmick hat, if you're listening on audio, you're just going to have to imagine it. For the last time in this godforsaken year of 2020, I've been Spaz, he's been Jake, he's been Guapo, Kristen's here with us in spirit. We are your YouTube reality check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all of these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later. But for right now, me, Jake, Guapo, Kristen, we're tagging out, guys. Happy New Year.